Well, hello everybody and welcome to the 332nd edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host Steve Wellings, and joining me on the call this evening we have Hater Dave Lowback, full of hate, Andy Patterson and Ozzy Smith. Good welcome to you all listening, iTunes, YouTube, all those places. No doubt there are a few people in the chat as well. Give you a pat on the back, a little bit of a shout very soon. I've got plenty of BoxRec tabs open up on the laptop screen, displaying the many fight cards we had over the weekend. A little bit quieter on the old stuff next week. But if you did watch the Dillian White against Oscar Rivas fight last night, no doubt all of you did. We did an in-depth post-fight pod. Lasted for about an hour or so. It's up on YouTube. Hopefully get it up on iTunes as well at some point. But that's where we really went into the meat of things. Rob was on. The Guru came back. Andy and Dave as well. Hamed jumped on as well. There's Gabe. Welcome to you, sir. Good to hear from you. So go and have a listen to that. We will talk about the fight tonight with the guys who didn't contribute last night, but it won't be as much, so go and hit the post-fight pod, about 53 minutes or so if you want to. Only one place to start tonight, the amazing Manny Pacquiao once again turning back the hands of time. I picked Keith Thurman, wouldn't you know, with my predictions I went for Keith Thurman. I thought, Ozzy, that Thurman probably spent too much time backing off, trying to counterpunch, and he wasn't necessarily fast enough to do that, to pull it off. He needed to either put it on Pacquiao and push him back a little bit more, maybe against the ropes, but it's easier said than done against one so experienced.
I think Pacquiao proved age really is just a number, because in a guy that started off in like probably one of the lowest weights possible, and the way he's grown through the weights, and even at his age and the defeat to Floyd, the fighters he's come back at since then. I mean, look at the Jeff Horn loss, but after that, and he was excellent. I thought he set the tone of the fight, dropping Thurman in the first. And I think that dictated what Thurman could do a little bit, to be honest. Took a long while to get going, Thurman. And by that point, for me, it was very difficult for him to make up the earlier rounds. I thought, going off the cards, realistically, I thought the knockdown for Pacquiao, the 10-8 round, proved quite pivotal, to be honest. But what a performance. And Pacquiao really is I think it's fair to say he's one of the best ever. Truly unbelievable, the resume he's got. And like I said, a lot of people were picking Keith Thurman in this fight. And I wouldn't say it's an upset, because it was a close fight going into it. And it was a tremendous performance. And I thought the class showed through, to be honest. It was it was an enjoyable watch for Pacquiao, and for Thurman, for all the talking he gave pre-fight, he just didn't live up to it.
Didn't live up to it at all. He was in Pacquiao's house, the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, maybe the 15th or 16th time. I think they said it was the 15th time he'd boxed there. Such an experienced campaigner, as I said. The undercard, we'll look at it a little bit later on. Your Denis Ugas, Nery, Plant, Ajagba, all those boys. But focusing on the main event, I think dropping Thurman, as Ozzy said, Andy, in the first, really set the tone. It set the vibe of the contest. And the commentators, they probably missed it at the time. But Thurman, I thought, was really badly hurt to the body as well in the 10th round. They picked it up on the highlights afterwards. But he kept on throwing his head down. And they said, why is he throwing his head in? Why is he trying to headbutt Pacquiao? It's because he was trying to avoid further punishment to the body. Yeah. He was ducking down to try and protect himself. We've seen him hurt to the body before. I think, Andy, am I right in saying it was Luis Collazo also found that shot?
Yeah. Collazo, yeah, I found that shot as well. But yeah, you can see after Pacquiao landed that shot, when he came back out for 11th and that, he was really trying to kind of chip away at the body again and that. It was a tale of a fight, actually. I thought Thurman did pretty well, kind of like mid half at that fight. You know, Pacquiao I thought was really good early doors, and Thurman started kind of finding his range a wee bit better around about, I think it was the 5th or the 6th round. He started kind of like getting a kind of foothold in the fight. I did think he was kind of like doing his better work, 6 to about 9. And then obviously I think that body shot really did kind of, well, if you look at it in slow motion, actually, I mean, fair play to the guy, because I dare say, it doesn't matter the kind of level we've all done it at, but I dare say we've all done a wee bit of boxing, MMA or whatever, and that we've all took a body shot, and it is one of the worst things you can ever take. And you can see it with Thurman. The first thing he did, and you probably know it yourself, is if you're gasping for air with a mouth guard in, is you want to take it out, obviously. And that's what he did. He spat it out into his glove. And at the same time, Pacquiao was showing, I think it was a jab he threw or a kind of right hook. And he fucking actually, as he spat it into his glove, he actually parried the shot and tried to kind of like spin away. So fair play to him, he hung in there, and he kind of tried to kind of come out early in the 11th and try and kind of like obviously try and kind of stamp his ground a wee bit. I think he did land a straight right hand, 11th, or I don't know if it was the 12th round, but his shots didn't really kind of have the mustard. You could see it. I don't know if it was around about the 7th or something. He landed a kind of 2-punch combo on Pacquiao, and Pacquiao just laughed at it because after he fell into clinch and stuff. And I kind of thought then, he's not got the power really to kind of truly bother Pacquiao. Whereas he thought, even at that age, Pacquiao's shots, I just thought they had the more mustard, the more meat on them. I just thought it was pretty telling, as I says. As you say, the first round knockdown, it probably sent a kind of statement to Thurman, really, I need to be careful here. Clearly still got to be respected. And even probably 40-year-old, but what is he now? Don't want to put a percentage on it, but say like he's 50% at his best, and he's still managing to beat these undefeated champions, 10 years younger than him and stuff like that. But, fair play. Some people will probably, like say, want to talk about drug testing or lack thereof of this fight. I don't know what the situation was. I'm not going to get into it and stuff because I can't be fucked. It was an enjoyable fight, and Pacquiao goes on again. He'll fight again next year, I suppose. Who against? He'll take his pick, I suppose. But what was the date on that Khan fight again? Because obviously Khan's talking about, this is a done deal. The way Khan was talking, it's this year.
Not
December.
December,
yeah.
In Saudi Arabia as well.
Right. The Pacquiao's talking about he's thinking about, I think I'll fight next year. So if he's got a contract, it sounds like it's not a done deal to me.
Well, it wouldn't be a first time Khan made an ass of himself.
Yeah, true. But as I say, it was an enjoyable. It was an enjoyable fight. Thurman, as I suppose, his power, that he spoke about and stuff like that, I didn't think it was really telling and showing. In the day, Pacquiao, as I say, it's 3 decades that he's fought in there or something like that, I think. But it's an incredible feat, actually, to be honest with you. You could actually break down his career and probably into maybe 3 or 4 sections and discuss it. And each in its own regard could probably be classed as Hall of Fame worthy or whatever. But I just think if you look at his career actually, post Mayweather, it's actually looking, it's starting to stack up a little bit, and it's looking not bad. I'm not saying it's like world class or great or whatever, now, but it's looking pretty decent.
Yeah, there was throwing out some statistics. Easy for me to say statistics on the Fox broadcast on the pay-per-view. Turning pro in 1995, about 16, I believe he was. He's going to be 41 by the time the Khan fight comes along, or not far from 41 years of age. He's been a boxer 60% of his life. They were saying, as Andy said, over the decades. Pacquiao, he just keeps on going, keeps on beating people. It is remarkable. Simple Boy said in the chat there, no drug testing, no respect. And also Ricardo Shally said, are we just pretending that was the best Keith Thurman? He is not the same fighter he once was.
That's a fair comment, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, Andy, yeah.
Thurman actually had surgery. Was it the shoulder or the elbow or something like that?
Elbow, I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I think he'd fought a couple of fights with was it hand problems or whatever and that as well. So it is probably a fair comment, but in the day as well, mate, fighters do fight injured as well sometimes.
I did like I might be butchering this, but on the broadcast at one point they said something like Thurman is the longest reigning WBC welterweight champion. I'm assuming they mean of all time, but wasn't he holding the title for about 2 years without doing anything in the middle of all that? So I might have got that wrong, but they said something along those lines. Anyway, Gabe, good to have you on with us here. Keith Thurman, he definitely lacked power. And maybe it's time to drop the one-time moniker because he doesn't seem to have that killer instinct anymore. Pacquiao wasn't hurt at any point. He wasn't buzzed that I saw. He wasn't wobbled once in the fight. Is Keith this big puncher, or are we seeing the guy, Gabe, that went on his bike against the likes of Collazo, against the likes of Lopez at times, against the likes of Leonard Bundu, Jan Zavek, some strange performances? Is he this big banger?
Well, I don't think he's ever really been as big as advertised by the name. I've always maintained that he is a strong puncher, of course. I don't think that you have the success that he has had very often if you're not a big puncher. You can always. I think Paulie Malignaggi is always a perfect example of what a fighter can do with a lack of power, given some extraordinary circumstances. I just think it's rare to see guys without power perform at a level that Keith Thurman's performed at over time. I think after watching this fight, I have a different kind of respect for Keith Thurman. So I've always been kind of the anti-Thurman. I don't,
No, you're the straight up hater.
Yeah, just don't like the guy. But last night, whenever I was watching the fight, I was talking with Dave and some other folks online, and what I was noticing was that the first few rounds seemed like it looks like Manny might get a knockout. I think he might score a knockout here because he was banging away at him and having tons of success. But a lot of credit to Keith Thurman. Instead of folding like a cheap lawn chair, he tried to find a way to make it go his way. So we started putting some pressure at times, boxed a little bit, not real successfully when he did box. I think a lot of times it was more he had some good timing on a couple of punches. And the fight was pretty close. Whenever I was talking to Dave, also, I mentioned before they read the cards, I said, Dave, I think that there's going to be a possible screw job here, or at least we'll get a draw out of it. And, the cards did read that way. I don't think that it, for me, was difficult to score in terms of Pacquiao winning the fight. But what I saw was Keith Thurman actually showed some balls and some determination in the face of being overmatched against a 40-year-old. How crazy does that sound to say, but I thought it was a really good performance on his part. I think all the things that have been said about Pacquiao, I'm not going to go down that trail because really there's nothing else that I can say that's going to add to that conversation. But from a perspective of someone who hasn't liked Keith Thurman, I really don't know that I can carry on bashing him the way that I have, because he really put in a pretty good performance given the consideration that he was getting pounded early. I mean, he was getting beat up early. And in the middle rounds, he found a way to kind of make it competitive and make it close going down the stretch.
Yep. Finally, on to you as well, then, Dave. People, I don't know if you want to get into it. People are talking about this VADA testing situation. The drug testing was performed by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, to my knowledge. A few people, including Devin Haney on Twitter earlier, were bringing this to light. Jamel Herring was discussing it as well. The WBC clean boxing program wasn't brought into effect for whatever reason. But I mean, I don't know if that takes any shine off it for you, Dave. What about going forward then? People are saying that the mighty man himself, Floyd, might be coming back, maybe fancy a go at Pacquiao. People were suggesting earlier on in his career that Thurman might be a decent challenge for Floyd. He was calling him out quite vocally after a few performances, but I think what we saw last night would have told you all you needed to know about that fight, Dave.
I can't see Floyd coming back for anybody. I just can't, unless it's for one of these move-arounds against these people in like China or Japan where he just beats the shit out of them and gets about $10 million for it. I don't think he's any interest in coming back and fighting the likes of Pacquiao, Thurman. Not through essentially that he thinks he'll lose, just the fact that he said himself that his body now isn't really capable of doing the camps like it used to be. And he is aging, and every time he spends time at the ring, he's getting a day older. So whilst he loves money and the sight of it, I think he'll make more now probably doing another one of these move-arounds than and a couple of those, like what they called, I forget the word, but you know what I mean, like basically piss takes.
Exhibition fights. Type.
Exhibition, yes. Yeah, exhibition fights rather than actually reversing his retirement again and coming out and challenging the likes of, say, for example, Pacquiao again.
Piss takes is a better term for what exhibitions tend to usually be, like when Mitt Romney went against Evander Holyfield, I believe. I don't think it would be too much of a stretch to see Floyd coming back to face another old guy like Pacquiao. We're not going to see him face someone like Spence. I mean, he already knows Spence kicked his ass in the gym, so I don't think we're going to see him face any young, tough guys like Spence or Crawford. And Floyd, even when he was active, he tended to avoid more of a slickster style. He would usually go for guys who would come to him and make him look good. I loved the fight last night. And I think one of the differences in perspective from some of the haters in our chat and some of you gentlemen is that I watched it live along with Gabe. There's nothing like watching it live. You know, you don't know what's going to happen, and the momentum flows. And you guys, I assume most of you guys probably knew the result before you watched it.
No, I watch. I don't turn my phone off airplane mode in the morning until I've watched all the fights.
Well,
that's why I can't respond to your nude pictures until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Dave.
Oh, damn! I knew there was a reason. Steve, I respect your commitment to the suspense of the fight.
I know. I just kind of do it. Like, the first thing I do when I wake up and that, I've got to get the phone to check.
That's typically what I do if there's a fight happened that I missed.
I was getting ESPN live updates like round by round and that, but I was just like I was semi-conscious at the time in that, and I was meaning to get up, and it was still going on like 5:45 in the morning, so I could have got up and watched the finale and that, but I just could not be arsed.
Well, anyway. My point is, there's nothing like watching it live, and I think for me, I was like surprised about very different things as it progressed. First thing, I was surprised Pacquiao had that kind of speed, that kind of aggression, that kind of power right out of the gate. He dropped Thurman, won the first 3 rounds pretty handily. And it did, I agree with Gabe, it looked like Thurman was on his way to getting stopped. I think it was an end of the 5th. He took a bunch of uppercuts. His nose was smashed. And he was starting to really look sorry for himself. But fair play to him. He then turned around and surprised me by showing that he truly does have the heart of a fighter. And he was able to make some adjustments. His movement became less bicycle-like and more purposeful. When he started sliding, it was a lot better than when he starts galloping around the ring, because then he's just running. He's not planting his feet. He's not generating any power. There were a couple times last night where he would take the slide step back and counter Pacquiao. That I think I'm not going to say he hurt Pacquiao, but you know he got his attention, and he made Pacquiao think and muted his offense. Won a couple rounds. I think 7-5 Pacquiao is about as close as you could have it, to be honest. I thought it was pretty clear Pacquiao won that fight. You know, he won the majority, maybe 4 or 5 of the first 6, plus the extra point, and then fought him roughly even the rest of the way. Definitely, I think, took the 12th. Even though Thurman did have some good rebound rounds in there, especially after he took that body shot. You know, that was phenomenal from both guys, really. Pacquiao for setting it up and hurting him that badly, and Thurman for surviving, spitting his mouthpiece out, putting it back in. The Mexican commentators, which is how I watched it, they certainly were aware of what was going on. I'm kind of surprised that was it PBC people couldn't tell. I mean, that was pretty obvious. Thurman was hurt, and hurt bad. It looked like he thought about taking a knee, but then he thought about it for about 15 seconds a couple different times. But he didn't, and he stayed on his feet, and Pacquiao wasn't really able to capitalize on it because he moved and ran and survived. So I think also early on, Thurman is more vulnerable than after he gets used to the power. He got dropped by that really nice, precise right hook in the first, but he took bigger shots than that as the fight wore on that did not have that effect on him. So yeah, I think the guy's like he's a little glass around the whiskers and body maybe, but he's certainly got the heart and toughness to recover from things. And if Thurman does continue, like I wasn't sure. It seems a lot like outside the ring, he's like he wants to retire. He's only after the big money fights. He's fine being inactive for a year or two. But if he does want to continue boxing, I think this will do him a lot of good. It seemed to me he was getting some hardcore on-the-job training last night, and he adapted. I was impressed by Thurman, but Pacquiao still, you know, he's the real story here, and rolled back the clock. The speed and combinations were about as good as we've seen in his, you know, second or maybe third iteration of his career post Floyd, and his aggression too. He was spiteful. Once he saw that left hook to the body was effective and hurt Thurman, he was really nasty, like sinking in another couple. He was looking for the stoppage at times last night, and the fact that he didn't get it is, I think, a credit to Thurman more than it is to Pacquiao not having the killer instinct. I think he was there to hurt. last night, and he looked good. He looked real good, considering he's so freaking old. He did tire though, but he did not tire as badly as we saw against Jeff Horn when he almost stopped him in the 9th. I still say that he overlooked Jeff Horn because there's no reason he should have been in a close fight with that bum, but he also beat Jeff Horn. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, what I was going to say was, I'm not sure after his big sabbatical out of the ring whether Thurman's heart is truly in it anymore. And I don't mean that he lacks heart, as in, you know, he tried hard, he got the body shot, hurt him. He didn't lack any aggression and want to win the fight. But I mean, just the general sort of heart, you know, maybe, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm saying, but you go out the ring for that long, you have operations and all that, and is it truly there? Was he good enough in the first place to beat someone like Pacquiao? I'm really not sure, Dave.
Well, I'm not sure if he was good enough in the first place to do it. I don't think he was, but
I thought he was beforehand.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was good enough to beat an older Pacquiao. Actually, this is what happens. I pick against Pacquiao in basically every fight, and he keeps winning. So I'm going to just keep doing it because I want him to keep winning because I'm a big fan. I picked against him in every fight except Jeff Horn, which is conveniently the one that he didn't get the decision in. But as far as Thurman being out too long, you know, not having the heart, I mean, we've seen other guys, Floyd being out for about that long, coming back in just as fine form. Andre Ward had, I think, an even longer time doing fuck all and came back and beat Kovalev twice. I don't think that it's assumption on your part. I'm not
Dave,
sure.
Ward struck me as that kind of guy who had that bit between his teeth, that grit, like, I want this. And I'm wondering how much deep down, obviously, he's got balls and he's a tough guy and he really tried to win last night, but really how much deep down does he really want this, you know, that determination?
Well, that's one of the things that surprised me because, Thurman doesn't necessarily strike me as that type of bite down of the gum shield guy. He's more like stonerish. He's like, whatever, man. But he did have it. That was the interesting thing. It's like things got real tough for him in there, and he still stayed in there and kept trying. He was trying till basically the end.
They got real tough, but did they get real tough? You know, Arturo Gatti, head hanging off, Arthur Abraham against Edison Miranda tough. You know, levels of toughness.
Your standards for Thurman might be a little high there.
Yeah. Maybe they are.
I mean, it goes back to the old quote from Marvin Hagler. What was it? Something along the lines of, "It's hard to get up and do the road work when you're sleeping on satin sheets," kind of deal. I mean, look at him. He's made plenty of money, and it seems to appears to be living a lifestyle that he enjoys to live. So, I mean, that could be a part of it. And then being off for so long, how hard is it to get up and get ready for the grind? I mean, you know, if I take 2 weeks off of work, going back on a Monday just goddamn near kills me.
Yes.
I think that's an unpleasant side effect of Al Heyman paying some of his guys so much for doing, like, not necessarily nothing, but, you know, like for Danny Garcia, you know, Thurman got very well paid. Well, I mean, I shouldn't use Danny Garcia because that was a decent opponent, but for Josecito Lopez, he got well paid, you know, and it should have been a knockover job if he'd come in right, but it wasn't. Because, you know, he's getting well paid for, you know, doing something that's not what we should have expected from a guy who's the welterweight champion.
Yeah. I'm not trying to criticize Thurman or hold him up to any personal, you know, ridiculous standards. I'm just talking about boxing standards. Like, you see guys like, look at Antonio DeMarco, for example, against Jamal James. DeMarco had no business going the 10 rounds the way he did in that fashion, constantly trying to batter that guy for whatever he's getting paid after 40-odd fights, never done it at the highest level. Always, there he is, still trying. Humberto Soto, there's another one. You know, these guys are there and they're even... everything's against them, and there's no reason to be still putting this type of effort in, and yet they still are. And there's like a higher standard, isn't there? There's like a higher echelon of boxing.
Well, I can tell you, I think it was tougher for Thurman last night than it was for Duran against Leonard the second time.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've done that point to death. Let's go on to the undercard. Anybody want to talk about anything that starts? If anyone wants to jump in for a minute on Sergei Lipinets against J.R. Inson, there wasn't really a lot to it. It was a great finish, left hook, bang, the guy went down. Bullshit stoppage from J.N.A.D. I think Inson looked fine to me. He looked at him, he winked, he said, I'm ready to go on, referee. And J.N.A.D. called the fight off for some reason. I think going forward, Andy, there's going to be work for Lipinets because he's in this PBC landscape. You know, there's the Porters, Garcias, Thurmans, Spence. We don't really want to see him fight someone like a Spence, but you've got Ugas, you've got who else have you got knocking about? Jamal James, who we mentioned earlier. There's maybe plenty of fights for someone like Lipinets to have, and he's not bad. I think he's decent enough.
Decent enough, mate. I didn't see the fight actually. I mean, was it an 8-rounder or something like that? It was an early stoppage, I think.
Yeah,
no,
second round stoppage. Yeah.
I was just going to chime in, but I've not seen the Jagba against Ramirez, and I did want to see that fight. For what I hear, the scorecards were pretty bad, and you know, Ramirez did cause or ask some questions of Jagba, which was probably a fight that needed to happen. 2 extra Olympians for Rio 2016. So
the guys in the chat last night, Andy, were saying to us, weren't they, when we were doing the post-fight pod? He's struggling here. He's getting, you know, Demirezian's laying hands on him. This is quite tight. Declan Graffin was saying it, and I looked at the scores this morning when I checked them. 99-91. I haven't seen the fight either.
Yeah, I'm going to go and watch it a fight actually because, as I says, I was Demirezin did catch my eye. One fight that I watched, and Jagba obviously as well was getting touted in that. But as I say, it's a good learning fight, I think, for what I'm hearing, and the scorecards when they favourable whatsoever. But no, I've not seen you guys Figueroa, but I'm glad he got beat actually. Figueroa, the wee weight cheat and stuff, you know, that's been a long,
looked
long
heavy,
time
looked
coming.
heavy, Andy.
Did he? Soft.
Yeah, looked soft.
Good. I'll maybe go back and watch that one then. Just on
lost
that.
Basically every minute of that fight.
It's not real exciting.
One fight I did see on the undercard was Lewis Nery against Payano. I just said Gable want to jump in here, and that's also short. To be honest, I think he just looked for the one punch. Actually, I mean, there was times during the fight and stuff. He just looks not passive in that, but he's looking for like just the kind of like the one telling blow. Payano actually did pretty well and stuff, but it was a pretty savage body shot. Like, I mean, it was running about the kind of the floating rib area, I think it was. And you know, to be honest, you could. I'm not kidding you. I mean, Payano was down for the best part of 2 or 3 minutes, maybe even slightly longer than that. That's how bad that body shot was. But again, question marks. Nery missing weight again. I know he made it in the end and stuff, but that's what the 3rd time possibly he's missed weight.
It's a shame, isn't it, all the bullshit with him? Because if you took away all the nonsense, there's a really exciting, explosive, talented fighter there.
There's a really good fighter there. I just think that we'll see. There's getting started. No, but as I say, there is a good talent there, but I think there's a sense of entitlement. He maybe cheats at the weight a little bit. You know, he's been caught with the drugs, so there is that element and stuff. But let's be legit, man. If Inoue gets his hands on him, he's going to rattle his G-spot. Like, there's no way he's going to stand up to Master Inoue. But no, he was it was a decent win, I suppose. In the grand scheme of things, Payano obviously getting ice off that guy. What was it? 1 round off Inoue, wasn't it? But
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he's next in line for the. But I don't know if was that a mandatory last night, or was it some sort of kind of eliminator?
Oh God, I have no idea, to be honest.
Hang on, let's pull this up. Hang on.
I think it might have been.
All right, he should be next in line for Ubali. That's the guy who won in Kazakhstan.
That'll be a decent scrap, you know. That will.
That will be, but hey, listen, and Ubali's a big dude for that 118. So I'm down for that fight. Or put the Maloney kid in me. Actually, I think Maloney might give him a wee bit of a tough one, and Quadras is quite highly ranked as well with the BBC. And if you want Big Manny Rodriguez, after he got at the iced off Master Inoue as well, so a couple of good fights that have been made for Mr. Nery, but yeah, I actually want to see him I want to see him in fights that he's deserving. I mean, because he's ranked 1 with the WBC at the minute, right? And I don't think he's actually deserving that ranking, considering everything it's went to pass. So I think he should maybe fight another one at least fight or some sort of kind of final eliminator before he gets a shot at Ubali.
Yeah, he's ranked number 1 for Ubali, as Andy says. Joseph Agbeko is ranked number 1 for the WBO, so that's what's going on over on their ranking at the moment. Oh dear. Gabe, yeah, tell me about Nery before you do so. Quick word on Ugas against Figueroa. Figueroa came in no decent shape. The referee was pissing me off a little bit, constantly chastising Ugas from the first round about his holding. I don't necessarily think it was particularly Ugas's fault. Figueroa's an absolute car crash, isn't he? I hope his younger brother Brandon, who also seems like a decent prospect, goes the same way, because Figueroa, he had no apparently he trained himself before the fight. He had this big guy in the corner, Ted Lucio, who was trying to G him up, and I don't know how he lasted the distance. He's just an absolute car crash, Figueroa. But fair play to Ugas, a guy who I like watching. I think he's improving. He's had the sharp end of a couple of cards over the time, but he's really on a decent enough run. Obviously, the Porter, he didn't win the fight, but he gave a good account of himself. A lot of people thought that he did do enough. Ugas, Figueroa, Gabe, and then transition smoothly into Nery against Payano.
Okay. Sorry, I was about to.
Okay, Gabe.
all over the pod.
And you're in time, like, mate. We're not in any rush, like.
Gabe's kids are all over him again.
No, I thought that wasn't very much fun to watch, just because of the constant jockeying for position and the way that they were really inside, but neither guy was really working when they were inside. Ugas looked like he could have put the pedal down a little bit further and went for a stoppage. I don't know if he would have gotten it. I really don't feel like he's that big of a puncher, to be honest. I think whenever he hits people and they're big telling shots, it's more because of his quickness and because of the different kinds of combinations that he kind of explodes with. I think if he had more power, he would have gotten Figueroa out last night. Omar Figueroa. And, I'll kick the dead horse, but I mean, he's been a weight bully his whole career, and that's what's gotten him through. He's been the bigger guy. Despite that, you can't load a chin. The guy's got a tremendous chin. But why the fuck would you take all those punches? He had that brilliant war with Nahito Arakawa some years back. And that was a brilliant fight. I thought, one of my personal favorites, Jerry Belmontes, took him and beat him and should have gotten the title in that fight. He's just a kid that had a lot of upside. As it sounds ridiculous to ever put anybody in comparison to an Arturo Gatti or someone like that, but he could have been one of those guys in that mold, just a terrific action TV fighter. And it never has materialized just because of the long layoffs, some of the legal problems with the drink driving and that kind of stuff. Just overall, somewhere along the way, lost focus of what he was wanting to do. I think he could easily go down to 140 again. Just based off of what he looked like last night, because he didn't look all that great. But, like you said, the referee was constantly stepping in. It was dumbass Russell Mora, who's notorious for being a shit referee.
Oh, yeah, you don't like him, do you?
No, I fucking hate that guy. He's almost as bad as
He's
Larry
a prick.
And, I don't like him at all. I thought he did a terrible job. Half the time, it was Figueroa coming up with his arms underneath Ugas' arms and pinning them there, not so much Ugas holding his arms there.
I agree with that.
The fight was sloppy. The fight was not really that fun to watch. And despite what Ugas brings to the table in terms of his skill and general competitiveness across the board in all of his fights, I just really never get excited about watching him, and I'm not really sure why that is. But overall, if you haven't seen that fight, unless you're a fan of either guy or you just want to watch something rather than nothing, that would be a good point. But for me, not something I'll watch again. It just really wasn't all that fun. It was just kind of a sloppy fight. And then, Omar Figueroa was never really in the fight. He never really was. Had a particular point in time where it looked like he might come on. Of course, because of the volume of punches that he throws, maybe relatively used to throw. He had a few moments where he threw a lot of punches and he connected some, but it was never really in doubt, and you never really felt like Ugas was in trouble. And then that was quite the converse, or excuse me, the inverse of the Luis Nery Payano fight. That fight was actually really fun to watch. I thought Payano was boxing well. He was really doing a lot of good things. But then I think around the third round, Luis Nery had some moments where he could land some punches, and you could see the fight was starting to kind of change over the distance, with Nery seeming to get closer and putting some sting on his punches a little bit more each round. And then, you finish with a tremendous body shot, which I've already been very vocal and adamant about the fact that Nery is a drug cheat. But I feel very much like you guys do. If it wasn't for all the nonsense with the guy, you really do, as you said, Steve, have a really marketable, entertaining fighter who with his style and his power and his skills could really be fun to watch. But just in good conscience, I can't do it because of his, number one, I think my battle is more with the WBC. I just don't like the way that he popped for drugs. I don't even know if he did a real suspension beyond what he would have sat out anyway for having a fight, and then he's right back in line for the title shot again. So to me, I think it was a good fight overall. But then again, I had problems with that part of what I see with him because of his actions with the illegal substances, and then also the WBC being big, just basic piles of shit.
Piles of shit, indeed. You are listening to episode 332 of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. That was Gabe there chatting away. Ozzy coming to him shortly on the MTK Show. Andy's with us as well. Let's get to you. Hey to Dave Lowe back on the final point of interest on this card. Caleb Plant against Mike Lee. Mike Lee had a great white hope vibe about him, I thought. But Plant, on the other hand, this is my first real look at him. I'd seen the Uskatagi fight, but it was on a really shitty YouTube video. Didn't really get to see a great deal. But this Plant, he has skills to burn, I think, Dave. He popped the jab so often that Lee expected it. And then Plant, for the first knockdown, turned it into the last second into a left hook. Landed on the button. He's intelligent, this guy. He sets traps. He exploits them. Joe Goosen mentioned that he has a high IQ. And Plant, he's very talented, I think. And he's going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, he was a real pleasure to watch last night. But to be fair, it was against the likes of Mike Lee.
A punch bag with a head on top.
Well, they said several times he was a former, I think, quarterback or lineman. I don't know, some sort of football player. And these guys tend to not be the best when they get in the boxing ring. What? No, I know Gabe had high hopes for the likes of Mike Lee because he saw him on a Subway advertisement or something. But
he was a linebacker out at Notre Dame. And then, like I mentioned last week's pod, he was with Top Rank for a large portion of the early part of his career, and I thought he looked pretty good. Obviously he wasn't facing top-notch competition, but then he had a pretty severe illness, and he sat out for quite some time before, I guess, the contract with Top Rank ran out, and then he moved over to PBC. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I have nothing personal against Mike Lee, but I would say that his ring IQ is near the bottom of the rung. He did keep trying that sort of very sloppy straight right counter shot, which fell like 2 feet short every time. His head was stationary. But, Caleb Plant knew as much, and he dealt with him in the style he should have. At least Mike Lee was in good shape. He had heart, and he was trying to go for it. So, it could have been worse. But Caleb Plant's performance was, quite lovely to watch. As was the fight with Uskatagi. I thought that was really fun to watch. Although that was a reasonably competitive fight. Plant won it, but it was competitive. My first exposure to Plant was against Rogelio Porky Medina when he won basically every round against him. But it was a very low-paced, boring fight. And even then, I said, this it reminded me of Floyd versus Baldomir. actually. And in many ways, you know, some of the things Plant does are like Floyd. That check left hook. The left hook is beautiful. I mean, that's probably his money shot. You know, he's not a huge puncher, but like it's precision and it's speed, and he gets it in there, and it's nice and short, and he can drop you. And I think it was left hooks. It was at least one left hook that dropped Uzcategui as well. So I look forward to seeing more of him. If we could see, I don't know how long Benavidez is going to hang around at the weight, but I would love that fight. Maybe get the
that's the fight to make for me, Dave. I was really thinking about that last night, and that like you said, that's a tremendous fight. I think you've got one guy with a great boxing IQ in Plant, and then another come forward, volume punching, power punching son of a gun. I think that's a tremendous fight.
That would be great, yeah. And I wouldn't even mind seeing the rematch with Uzcategui either, because you know it was competitive. Uzcategui is at least usually entertaining as well. Is what's his name still around at that weight? Anthony Durrell.
Yeah, he's fighting Benavidez, isn't he? They're talking about one of the cards. Is it Porter Spence, maybe?
Yeah, that's where they said it was going to be last night, as I read, whenever they did the, I guess, press conference to finalize it, that was going down.
And Zurdo Ramirez has moved up, right? So he's out of the picture.
Yeah, he's shit too, so we don't want to see him in the picture, do
Yeah,
we?
well,
You need to tear that picture up, man. You need to put your foot through that picture.
I'm just thinking, you know, there's a nice win for him to get while he's killing time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of Caleb Plant, even though I have barely seen any of him so far. I like what I do see, even though it can be boring. It's still done with class. It's done with know-how. It's done with intelligence.
Yeah, Plant stunk the place out against somebody. Was it Jay Leon Love, somebody like that?
It was the guy who iced Jayleon Love, Rogelio Medina.
No, he fought somebody else. Was it Love? I thought he fought someone and he went right through the motion. Maybe it was Medina, you know, maybe it was. Yeah, they're saying in the chat about Benavidez against Plant, Dave. Someone said that Benavidez beats Plant, but MB made a good point. He said Benavidez unconvincing against Gavril in the first fight.
Mm-hmm. But he was very convincing in the rematch. He also had some cocaine issues, which I guess he was suspended for. He's a very young guy, to be fair. So for his age, I think he's really tremendous and physically talented as well as Benavidez. I really like watching him. Those combinations that he unloaded against Medina, he actually did the opposite of what Plant did against Medina. He really shined, looked like Ray Leonard at times, just beat the shit out of him, and it was very aesthetically pleasing. So yeah, it's a good matchup. I would like to see both guys in with maybe a few more, but first, if they want to build it up into a super fight, but neither is a huge name, so that would be kind of difficult.
Okay, let's move on off that card even before we unleash Rob Kelly onto the world. Let's have a look at this Brentwood Centre show on YouTube, Ozzy. You said earlier that every fight went the distance, a long old night for them in attendance there. Shaquille Day, 12-0, defeated Luis Adolphe. Chantal Cameron had a bit of beef in the build-up against Anisha Bashir and Michael McKinson, who's talented. Seen him boxing in Belfast a couple of times right early on when he just turned pro. He's a real talent, McKinson. He defeated Evgeny Pavko. Where was the value to be had here, Ozzy?
It was an okay night. I think it's fair to say you definitely got value for money. As I say, what was the 1, 2, 3? Probably about 12 fights on the card, and all went the distance. So you certainly, like I say, you got value for money for whatever you paid for your ticket. I thought Chantal Cameron would have got that girl out of there, to be honest, that Bashir. But as we were saying off air, that Bashir, I won't say she's known to UK fans, but she was brought over for a Commonwealth title shot against Steve Goodwin's fighter Sam Smith, and knocked her out in a round. So she clearly has some sort of power, and Cameron was levels and levels above. And I believe now that she's actually mandatory for one of Katie Taylor's titles. So that's a fight I definitely want to see. It actually excites me, and I rarely say that about women's boxing, but I like Cameron. I think she's a bit different. She can punch, got a bit of power, and I think she's got the beating of Taylor.
I'd like to see her win fight the winner of the rematch of Taylor soon. I am interested in that. Yeah.
I was just about to say I'd rather see Taylor fight. Is it Delphine Pursoon first, and then you start obviously going into the land of mandatories, etc. things like that. McKinson's a talented lad, lacks a bit of pop in his punches, but outclassed this Evgeny Pavko. Probably in like, I mean, he fought for one of these fringe WBO bauble belts, which are kind of irrelevant in that perspective, but he can't be far off a British title shot, to be honest. And he's got skills, the lad. He's decent. I like him. The Southern Area welterweight title fight was good between Day and Adolphe. Close, and to be honest, Adolphe had a point off in the 8th for holding, and then got dropped twice. I think it was in the 9th or the 10th, and there was a 4-point gap in between it. So it was those two telling rounds that were a massive difference maker. And then the rest was relatively straightforward, to be honest. Thomas Patrick Ward, the talented bantamweight, who won out in America earlier this year, got a routine win. Another win for Harlem Eubank, and then a run out for a lot of MTK's kids. But again, it's another weekend with another MTK show, and they're doing great work on the small hole front. They're getting their fighters out regularly. They are putting meaningful fights on their cards as well. So yeah, it wasn't a brilliant card. I've seen better MTK ones. That's not a dig at them. That's just showing the quality of cards they've been putting on recently. So look, for a 3 nights boxing on YouTube, you cannot complain, and it was okay.
No complaints here. The word on the street about pod favourite from Ghana, Emmanuel Tago, is there is no news. They haven't updated box rate yet as to whether he beat Ishmael Ariete, but I will bring you that news as soon as I get it hot off the press. If you want to hear about Maxim Vlasov against Isaac Chilemba, go to the post-fight pod last night where Andy broke it down. Vlasov won unanimous decision over the ever-present journeyman that is Chilemba. Right, Rob, let's get you stuck in here then, shall we, on the Manny Pacquiao-Keith Thurman fight. What about this conspiracy theory that's doing the rounds, Rob? I didn't just make this up whatsoever. Keith Thurman didn't object to the drug testing against Pacquiao because he's also juiced to the gills, hence why he had 2 years off because he was serving a suspension. What do you think about that one, Rob?
Well, we'd have known about it if he was serving a suspension, surely. I don't think Keith Thurman is that big of a cash cow that he's generating the kind of hush money. Like he's some kind of big fucking PR machine.
He has enough, Rob, to be gambling 2 nights in a row, if stories are to be believed.
Look, yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, I said this last week. I never thought Keith Thurman was as good as said was on the way up. And when he got to the top level, I don't think, I mean, all right, he has wins against Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, but Brooke beat Sean Porter, arguably. And Danny Garcia got his ears boxed off by Mauricio Herrero and Lamont Peterson, and came out with wins even though he didn't deserve it. So I don't think points wins over the two of them is placing him in any kind of elite welterweight character. And I thought he'd have his hands full with Manny Pacquiao, and he did. I was really pissed off during the week. I watched the head-to-head, and Thurman was just unbearable. Like, I mean, his ego was out of control. Like, relax, man. You're not a star. Like, you're not a fucking superstar. You're fighting Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao is a global superstar, and you're not going to be. So all the trash talk is just kind of cringy when you think about the performance he put in last night. Yeah, he tried. Yeah, he hung in there. But I thought the fight was wider than even the cards had, and I couldn't see anyone. It shouldn't have been a split decision. I couldn't see anybody finding 8 rounds in that fight for Keith Thurman and a knockdown as well. I really couldn't see that. So that was sus to me. In terms of Manny, you got to give it to him. I mean, Jesus Christ, all the fights he's had at this stage, the Morales series, the Barrera fights, the Bradley fights, the Marquez fights, Patton, De La Hoya, Mosley, like Cotto. You're just hearing Thurman saying to him during the week, like, you've never tasted power like mine. And Manny's just looking at him like, yeah, you hit harder than Cotto, you hit harder than Margarito, hit harder than all these fellas. Like, no, Manny Pacquiao's a legend, a living legend, and a legend of the sport. And it's great. It's kind of, I'm happy to see this kind of, purple patch laid on in his career. All right, win over Broner and Thurman maybe is not putting him in the top tier at welterweight with the two that are ahead of him at welterweight at the moment. But even saying that, like at 40, for a guy who's come up from all those weights, the lower weights, is to be still hanging around at welterweight and still give a performance like that and go out and drop a hungry line, so they say, like Keith Thurman, I just think speaks volumes about Manny Pacquiao. And I said it last week, I couldn't see Thurman having his way with Manny, like, and he didn't. It was great. So, according to Manny's team, this Amir Khan fight is not signed. Like, Amir announced during the week that it was signed for November in Saudi Arabia. And Manny answered that question at the press conference, and they said Amir said that both parties have agreed and you're fighting him in Saudi Arabia. And Manny said, Saudi Arabia? He goes, maybe he's talking about it. Manny said, maybe he's talking about a different Manny Pacquiao. So I wouldn't be like Amir to lie. I mean, everyone knows he sparred with Andre Ward and everything, so it wouldn't be like him just to come out with some complete total hogwash.
Rather throwing that shade, baby.
Well, like, I mean, like, it was a strange comment from Khan. I thought to say in the interview, this fight's done, and it doesn't matter whether Manny wins or not. Now, if Manny has won and he's a world champion again, so he has a belt again, like his second belt at welterweight since the Mayweather loss. Like, so, yeah, strange comment from Amir. We'll see. I mean, I wouldn't rule out the two of them fighting. I think I think Khan is probably a logical opponent for Pacquiao with what's out there at the moment. But I don't think it's going to be in Saudi Arabia. If it happens, I'd say it'll be on PBC and it'll be on the States.
And Rob, what about the loser? If he still has the hunger, which we're not sure, then we can maybe recycle him still with the likes of your Garcias, your Spences, all those guys knocking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see Thurman again, but I do think he's one of these Heyman guys who's after getting paid a lot of money, and he might just be like, fuck it. Do you know what I mean? I always questioned that about Thurman, whether he was really in it for the boxing, really in it for the love of the sport, like really in it as a pure fighter, or whether he was just fortunate. I don't want to say too fortunate, he hasn't been gifted in his career, but he's got in with Heyman and got paid a lot of money for, like, Josecito Lopez, and that was another key indicator as well. Like, Josecito Lopez is not a big guy, like, not a big welterweight, and everyone was kind of talking about the size difference between Thurman and Manny. Well, if you can't make the size difference count against fucking Josecito Lopez, you're not going to make it count against Pacquiao. Like, so, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see where both of them go next, to be honest with you.
Anything off the undercard, Rob, before we move on?
What was on the undercard? Oh, Caleb Plant. Yeah, I like Caleb Plant. Like, I think he's got a lovely style. I think he was matched perfectly last night to look good against a guy like Mike Lee, who's just going to, like, I mean, if you can't look good with that style against a guy like Mike Lee, you're not going to be a top-level operator. But Caleb Plant is very, very good, and it's going to take a good fighter to beat him. Although I did take massive umbrage with the PBC commentators in general are fucking awful. What's the guy? Is the guy's name Kriegel or something, or whatever his name is? He's fucking horrendous. But after the fight, he took a moment to compare Caleb Plant to Pernell Whitaker in the week that he passed away. I just thought, fuck off, will you? I turned it off straight away as soon as I heard that comment. So I didn't catch the Pacquiao-Thurman till this morning. But yeah, that's all I saw off the undercard on that one, dude.
No problem. Yeah, we were talking about the commentators off air, me, Dave, and Ozzy, when they were talking about the Caleb Plant situation, and Joe Goosen said he felt, with a lot of candour, that he felt like he would just jump off the bridge. I thought that was quite honest and to the point. But there you go. Let's move on then, shall we, to the London card. Ozzy, starting off with you. The boys have said their piece against Dillian White and Oscar Rivas. Let's get the belt situation sorted out first of all, Oz. We obviously see Saul Farah there rocking a fine strap over his shoulder. What's the deal here with Dillian White then? The announcement that Deontay Wilder is a franchise champion was, of course, a hoax sent by a phony WBC account, not the real one, but another phony one. White was the silver champion, whatever that meant. He's now the interim champion. So if any reason that Deontay Wilder were to relinquish his belt or whatever gets took off him, White would become the full WBC champion, similar to what happened with Charlo and Canelo at middleweight. Is it more a case, Ozzy, trying to get a sanctioning fee, trying to add a bit of WBC shine onto the fight and get a few quid? I mean, it doesn't really mean that much, does it, in the grand scheme of things?
Quite possibly. It's a new marketing angle for Eddie and Matchroom in terms of saying that basically he is the interim world heavyweight champion. And regardless of all that, he's not next in line, because I think the deal they've done is that the WBC put this belt on there, but then they've still got to wait for Tyson Fury to box in February. And then after that, take it from there. But I mean, what's going to happen if Fury wins? Is there going to be a rematch clause, or will the mandatory be enforced then? I think until this fight happens, for the WBC belt. It's just going to be a case of biding his time once again. I think he needs to stay active. Don't think he's a fighter that he can afford to sit on the sideline and take 12 months, but it's just another needless belt. Or basically, why can't he just be named the #1 challenger? And that's that. Do we need an interim heavyweight title? No. The belt is active. Wilder is fighting. He doesn't have an injury. And that's the only time you can really excuse an interim title being created. You know, if the champion's injured or something like that, he's not. So, yeah, it's more money for the WBC and somewhat of a marketing tool now because they can say essentially, yeah, he is interim champion.
They said, Ozzy, that he's going to have another fight in November, December, we're assuming. Is that going to be pay-per-view, possibly for Dillian White? We don't know. But, I mean, they're going to have another fight after that. It's going to realistically be a year, isn't it? It's going to be next July at the earliest that he gets the shot.
I would say so, yes. Yeah. In answer to the first question, will it be pay-per-view? Yes. Dillian White is a pay-per-view fighter now. I don't agree with that, and a lot of people don't. But he headlines shows now, and the money he commands and what he has been sold, he is clearly one of Matchroom's only pay-per-view fighters at the moment. If they're going to fight in November, December, Fury Wilder's going to happen in February. So without a doubt, he is going to need another fight unless he boxes in December and then waits for the outcome of that, and they can pen a date in for what? June, July? But it's a long time out going into probably the biggest fight of your career. So we'll wait and see. I thought White was okay last night, actually. I thought he demonstrated some good things, hit to the body well, and showed a lot of balls, really, because I thought it was a heavy knockdown. And I think Rivas just basically blew his tank in that and just didn't have, the energy and to go on and basically get White out of there.
I think Rivas, Ozzy, sorry to interrupt you, was already starting to tire from the body shots, and the knockdown almost came as a surprise to him as much as anybody else.
It was, yeah, and that's one thing that White can do. He invests in that body, and he does throw a good shot to the body as well. I think he's a bit of a messy fighter to watch at times, White. Is vulnerable. We've seen him drop now by, obviously, Joshua earlier on, but Joe Parker's dropped him, Rivas has dropped him. So he's got a chin, but he's susceptible to hitting the canvas as well. It was a solid enough win. I thought from a betting perspective, Rivas was better than a 4-1 shot. And he'll probably watch the tape back and think what could have been, gone a bit, put a bit more effort in earlier on. And it wasn't a fight that, he was completely outclassed in. And he probably will look back and thought, actually, I probably could have won that. As for Dillian White, it's another win. I'm not going to sit here and champion that he should be fighting for a world title all the time because he's had opportunities to fight final eliminators for other belts and he's declined those. But he is staying active at the moment and it's good to see. Going to be interesting to see who they put him in with next, really, because it's not going to be Ruiz, Wilder, Joshua, Fury. Are they going to look at somebody like Alexander Povetkin, maybe? Or perhaps a Kubrat Pulev, Adam Kalnacki? There's not that many fighters around. Eddie has a lot of them, so we're just going to have to wait and see.
I'll be coming to you shortly on the undercard as well, Ozzy. Before we do so, Gabe, let's bring you in on this one. White, he did a good job of nullifying Rivas' offense, especially by using his jab. He was raking the body late on, as we mentioned. And White, he never seemed overly close to me to blowing up physically, despite the excess weight that he came in at. I didn't think he looked great on the scales. I expected he would have stamina problems. He didn't, for the most part. He seemed to do the distance pretty well. And he just looked like the bigger guy. Rivas looked to me like a cruiserweight, Gabe. The knockdown aside, I thought Dillian White boxed really well off the jab. Maybe really well is a bit of a stretch, but he did the job he had to do. And the train rolls on, Gabe.
Yeah, I think Oz pretty much covered what my thoughts are on where he goes next. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there in terms of guys that you could match him up with. That could, put on a good show, I guess. But, I mean, in terms of relevance to the upper 2 or 3 fighters of the division, there's really nowhere else for him to go. I think that they wouldn't be able to make some fights with some of those PBC guys unless the PBC fighters, were kind of getting cashed out on and had some good deal worked out. I mean, so, I think where my mind goes is what we talked about last week. The division, despite the claims of it being a lively division again, are somewhat blinded by the fact that it's just not a deep roster. Like we were talking about, why in the fuck was Robert Helenius on TV last week? Well, that's a really easy answer, because there wasn't a whole lot of other heavyweights that you're going to put on there that people are going to watch. Not that people go out of their way to watch Helenius, and I forget who it was that he was fighting, but I mean, there's actually
it was Gerald Washington.
Yes. You see, you get the point. I mean, there's only so much marketability that he's going to have if he doesn't step up and face the top 2-3 guys in the division, which, as we know right now, isn't planned anytime in the future. So with the top, I guess I'll say the top 5. I'll put it that way. My top 5 fighters of the division, based on kind of where they stand in the title picture. You have Wilder's going to be fighting Luis Ortiz, so I would put Ortiz there at 5. You have the number 4, AJ, going with the number 3, Andy Ruiz, and then Tyson Fury. So he's kind of going to be waiting for his shot at Wilder, maybe facing some lower level competition. I just don't really see a whole lot here to get excited about in this division, aside from, like I said, that top 5 really people. And if you're legitimately talking about top 5, I don't know that Andy Ruiz is going to be in there, other than the fact that he has, a big win and has a couple of belts. So, really overall, I think the division is still kind of bare in terms of having a lot of great fighters. It just so happens that the top 2 or 3 are really interesting fighters that people can really rally around and really want to see fighting. So, for me, I don't know where do you take White next. I mean, at some point, Povetkin's going to be used up in terms of his value that he brings to the table as a name fighter, if he's not already. I've been a big fan of Povetkin for some time, but really, I mean, what at this point, beating him is going to do exactly what for a fighter's career, other than give you a name on the record. So I just don't see a whole lot to get excited about for Dillian White at this point.
Talking about things to get excited about, a lot of people are getting excited, Ozzy, about your rundown of the undercard. Feel free to speak about what you want, but obviously there's one fight that everybody wants you to discuss: David Price against Dave Allen. Get all the value of the week's flying in during the week. Kurt Ward threw one in for Boxing Life, who said, has there ever been a more stacked heavyweight division? Named all the names, including Dave Allen, right at the end. I got one coming in from Chad Hogan there, Brian King. Ashley Cartwright said to Darren Barker, this was a learning experience against Price. There is no shame in saving the boxer. I still believe he can win a world title with you. All these comments are flying in at the moment, but what's going on with Dave Allen? Obviously, putting aside Ozzy, it goes without saying, we don't want the guy to get hurt, man. I mean, we're not discussing this in the context of what happened afterwards. Max Stoke is asking, what were Allen's health problems mentioned in the aftermath? We don't really know what's going on. But tell me about the performance.
Brain damage.
Yeah, well, what was it, Ozzy? What's going on here with Dave?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it's never a good thing when you're hearing that he's out in bars at 2 and 3 a.m. the night before his fight, and that's coming from Derek Chisora, who was probably in the same hotel. So that's never a good start. And, I mean, the concerning thing is that he's
probably
gone
at the same bar.
Well, it worked for Chisora, whatever he did then. But in terms of like my health's deteriorated over 12 months now, I would associate a comment like that like he's had an illness or something, because that is what deteriorates. Unless he feels that all his denial, he genuinely feels like the shots have been basically taking its toll, and he is a bit punch drunk now. Last night, he made David Price look absolutely unbelievable, when we've seen before Price is not that. And he went back to he was the Dave Allen that has shown for a number of fights on Sky. He blocks his shots with his head. He doesn't really have a form of defense, and it took its toll, and he was beaten up. He was completely outclassed, and I don't see where he goes. He loves this publicity. By the way, I would never wish anything, any illness or injury to him. Like, obviously, going out the ring on a stretcher is not something we want to see for anybody, regardless of what I've said previously. However, he needs to evaluate what he wants to do going forward, because you're getting hit by blokes that are 18, 19 stone, and he's not the biggest of heavyweights anyway. And you just can't go on like that. You can't go on like that at all. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, he's done a complete U-turn. I mean, he tweeted out yesterday saying he thinks his career's over. And now he said he's going to have a week off and see where he can go from there. So it's gone from retiring pretty much immediately to he wants to come back. I still think there would be fights there for him, because regardless of what we think, he's built a name for himself, and he's built a profile for him for where people do like him. And you've got people saying, oh, he can win a world title. Can he win a world title? But he's built that profile from where he can. So I'd like to see someone like, potentially, if he is going to carry on, I think it'd be a good fight for Nathan Gorman to come back to. Daniel Dubois would kill him. Would kill him. He'd just destroy him. Price last night beat him up, and I think Dubois would knock Price out in 3 rounds. Dubois would kill Dave Allen. It would be horrible to watch. So yeah, it was one of them. I thought Allen would win, to be fair. It's the first time I've ever backed Dave Allen and he doesn't get fucking beat. I thought he'd win. I thought Price had gas. And I thought Price was tiring, but Allen just couldn't do anything. I thought Darren Barker was poor in the corner. He didn't really offer any assistance, any help. I mean, the fact is, just before the weigh-in, he didn't even have a clue at what Dave was going to be weighing in at. Now, that's a joke from your trainer. I mean, the fact they were talking about Alexander Povetkin for Dave Allen, again, that would have been probably a murder charge on Povetkin's resume, because, again, Povetkin would have killed him, absolutely destroyed him. But, again, I refer back, it shows to the profile Allen has beat that he was being mentioned with the names of like Alexander Povetkin.
Not only that, if you're to believe what they say, and he's actually, this came from himself, so you can believe it. He'd already told Hearn to go and make the Povetkin fight. He said reach out to Povetkin's people, so they were already thinking a fight ahead of Pricey. His Price mentioned that as well was extra motivation for him. But like you said, Povetkin would have fucking put him in a coma. Because imagine what Povetkin would do. Even this version of Povetkin, what he would have done to Dave Allen. Oh my God! Like,
look what Povetkin did to Price. He basically destroyed Price. Imagine what he'd done to Allen. Like I said, he has no form of defense. His form of defense is just taking shots on his chin and basically hoping that his opponents gas out. And then he can take him out basically later down the line.
Aussie Gabe has a question for you. Go on, Gabe, quick.
I don't know what Dave Allen's come in at before weight wise, but I was curious to see. I mean, I look at his physique and think, to myself, in terms of a reasonable training and diet regimen, could he get down to cruiser, do you think, if he was disciplined enough?
He's openly said before he is too big to make cruiserweight. Now, I mean, I thought he looked in pretty decent nick last night. He weighed in at 241, so he'd have to lose 41 pounds to get down to cruiser. That's a hell of a lot of weight. And you probably should.
I don't know. I haven't paid much attention to what he's coming at weight wise, but seeing
what's interesting
yesterday was quite significant.
Yeah, what's interesting? He was lighter than probably top for three. He was weighed in at 241. I think he's only weighed in lighter twice before that. The Lemroy Thomas first fight, and then a couple of fights early in his career. He's always said that he feels better with a bit of weight on him, and to be fair, he's performed better with the weight on him. That saying, if the rumours are true and you're out in bars at 2-3 a.m, then you deserve everything you get, because what you're doing, it's again the biggest night of your life, and if it is true and you were getting the Povetkin fight and you beat Price, you're getting probably a massive payday for it. So, I mean, it's what's going to happen, I don't know. Do we want to see him fight again? Probably not. Will he fight again? Who knows? There's only Dave Allen who can.
He can't fight again. He's on the march now to getting serious issues in later life. I've told you before. We've discussed it before about his speech. He sounds slightly punch drunk. I mentioned it last night. I'm not wanting to be a dick about it, but when when your main form of defence is basically stand there, ramrod straight, and just cover up, put your hands up, and just take shots over and over and over again at heavyweight, no less. Guys are like 17, 18, 19 stone. Guys who are trained to throw punches against a guy who's never won a title, as Ozzy says, at area level.
Who we're talking about maybe getting down to cruiserweight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
we're talking about 2 fights away from fucking AJ, by the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Come on.
Like I said, if you can't beat David Price, you probably don't have a future in heavyweight division.
I know he's came out on Twitter and stuff like that, and he says that I see everything, I read the comments and stuff like that, and I'll forgive, but I don't forget and all that sort of stuff. But listen, mate, I'm sorry, but somebody needs to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to know or what you want to hear. You need to be told that your time is up, because I'm telling you, mate, we saw against a guy there on Friday night who, in my opinion, was probably a weight division too small. I'm talking about Maxim Dadziev, who is, by the way, I'm not getting into it in a minute, but he's like 50-50 for the news that's been going about and stuff, but he's got half his skull missing. Do you want to be that guy, Dave Allen? Because you are not on the level of Povetkin. As Ozzy says and as Rob says, if you take one clean left hook off a guy like Povetkin, who is, I'm telling you, man, I mean, Christ's sake, non-juicer or no, he still knows how to throw a punch. He had no answer to David Price last night, who is, by the way, showed his amateur pedigrees, as says. The size difference was huge.
Yeah, he's massive, wasn't it? Yeah.
Povetkin, no.
He was keen for the Dubois fight as well, because he's the British champion. Can you imagine that? The way Dubois dismantled Nathan Gorman, Dubois is a big bloke, big lad. He's 21, he's a big lad. He would murder Allen, murder him. And what we've got to remember is, Allen ain't even good. I've said it before. He's won these couple of bauble belts, but he's never realistically won something beyond area level. And I mean, the fights he's had, I mean, the Lemroy Thomas loss, he didn't really take any punishment, but then obviously the second one, but then he took the Tony Oka fight where he got battered, absolutely battered. Luis Ortiz.
Broken nose, I think, in that fight as well, did he know?
Sorry?
Yeah, the broken nose in that fight as well, from what I remember.
Oh, he was busted up big time. Luis Ortiz, I think he sliced half his tongue off or something like that. Had to go through a straw for about 3 months. Dillian White, he got battered then in a boring contest. He then gets, like I said, he got the opportunity against Nick Webb, who's proven to be garbage. And then he beat a couple of others. But that Bracamento fight as well, do you remember the Argentinian guy, what he ever ended up getting out there?
Teeing off on him.
Battered in that fight as well.
Yoka was the bad one. I thought Yoka was the bad one. He really took a beating there.
I just watched a Russian guy actually go 10 rounds with that Argentinian. But as you say, that fucking guy, did he know gas in the end or something like that? Or did he get caught with a lucky punch or something?
The Argentinian guy.
Aye.
I think it was a combination of basically taking a few shots and he just got...
Yeah, he got wore down, didn't he?
Yeah.
But like just on Alan, I know we get stick on this podcast particularly for him and stuff at Matchroom. It's not because he's a Matchroom fighter or whatever, and we have called bullshit on his profile and how it's been built, but like it's not coming from a bad place. Like, I'm not telling him to quit because he's a match. You know what I mean? He's in danger of getting very, very badly hurt.
Yeah.
As he mentioned, his tongue against Ortiz. Something similar again last night with Price, or something about his tongue as well when he went to the hospital. So, like, he's getting battered in. You know what I mean? He's getting real hidings. And what's the fucking point? Like, fill a few tickets for Eddie Hearn. You know what I mean?
Exactly, mate. That is the thing. It's all about banters, about selling tickets and stuff like that. Put your face out. Oh, he's a king of social media and stuff like that. No doubt, Dave Allen's a good guy. I've heard him speak open and honestly in other interviews outside the IFL and stuff like that. He comes across as a legit guy, doing the podcast, being honest and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had him on here.
We need to be honest back. Mate, you are, as Rob says, you are seriously running the risk of getting seriously hurt. Seriously hurt. For what? For a bit of banter. Come on, mate. Somebody, that guy in his corner, I think he's been with him since he started or whatever for his amateur days. I don't know, but
that's Mick Marsden, isn't it?
He needs to tell him enough is enough.
Did he not let Marsden go?
No, Marsden was in the corner on the weekend, wasn't he?
His life coach, and he also had Darren Barker now, but I don't know. Is Darren Barker going to stay?
He went to boot for like a week, and then he was back with Marsden. So that tells you as well, like a lot of the stuff about, oh, I'm ready now, this is it, you know, I'm taking it serious. Was he really ever taking it serious? You know what I mean? Was he really? Because he had the opportunity to go to boot and came back to, you know, where he might have been able to change some things and improve as a fighter and not be surrounded by yes men. Because whatever you say about Boot, I don't think you train under his regime, you don't train with him. Like,
that's right.
So, you know, I don't think was he ever really serious. And now it's time to call it. Like, you got your few quid, you got more, probably you earn more money than a fighter which your ability should have earned probably. So take the money and run now, like where you still have it somewhat. Like,
final points on Alan Ozzy before we move on to the other fights.
I think we've all covered it all in a perspective, and we've reiterated it's not because he's signed to any promotional outfit. I've always been frustrated that he's got a hell of a lot more opportunities than other fighters that work hard on the small hole scene, because basically he has a bit of crack on social media. And he never takes it seriously. And like I said, you just make a rod for your own back. If you're out in bars till 2, 3 a.m., you deserve everything you get. And you don't deserve these constant opportunities. And like we said, this is a sport from where you can't dick around in it. And he clearly is. And what can I say? He really needs to evaluate his career now. And the people close to him, I don't know if they listen to this podcast or not, but don't tell him what he wants to hear. You be brutally honest with it. You could make a 3-minute montage of just showing him the shots he takes. And it's not just one-off ones. It's sustained beatings, and they are the worst. It's not as if, you know, he gets dropped and he's knocked out and he goes on to fight another day. They are sustained beatings for 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds.
The thing about fighters as well is it's difficult to manage is once they get in the limelight and once they start, you know, everybody's shaking their hand, everybody wants to know them, everybody wants a picture with them. It's hard for them then to walk away. I mean, me and Oisin Fagan were very close, like, and I remember after the Eddie Highland fight being in the hotel room with him, and I said, look, man, it's time to fucking, you know what I mean? It was a close fight tonight, but like, take your shots. I think it's time to fucking hang them up now. Like, you've been in with some top guys. You didn't win a world title, but like, this is, you know what I mean? And I remember asking him not to take the fucking John Murray fight and asked him would he retire again after that fight. And he didn't want to hear it really. Like, you know what I mean? He did really
ended up fighting Kofi Yates, didn't he?
Yeah, he went on. He fought Goodwin and another few guys. And, he never kind of got back to where he was or whatever. But it's just with fighters, like, they don't want to let it go. You know what I mean? Like, and he didn't want to hear it at the time. He wasn't happy with me. But, you know, later on then afterwards, he kind of told me he thought I was right. But I don't know. Like, it's a tough one. They need good people around him. And I don't know if he has that many. Like, so.
Yeah. Well,
the guys in the chat are talking about Mick Marsden. All I know is that Mick Marsden's been around the game for a long, long time. Someone said, is he a fraud? No, Mick Marsden's a proper boxing fella, from what I know, from what I hear. So I don't think he's the problem.
Mick Marsden was the fall guy for a lot of Dave Allen's defeats.
Mm-hmm.
Because Allen, whilst he bangs on about him, I don't think he had the respect for him. Hence why he'd just eat kebabs and things like that and not give a toss. You have the respect for your trainer, which he says he has. You'd abide by nutrition plans, etc., things like that. And as soon as he had a sniff of going down to Darren Barker, he basically said, cheers, Mick, but Darren's going to lead my camp. And where did that get him? Nowhere.
Yeah, one of the greatest Mick Marsden moments. They went back to the corner on a Sky Sports show. You know, the way they're always funny about the swearing and that. First thing, Mick, straight in front of the camera, you got to hit this cunt, otherwise I'm pulling you out. I always remember that, man. It was funny as hell. Anyway, let's move on, Aussie, to the undercard. Max Stoker's been asking you how a fight between Richard Poirier and Lawrence Okolie would go. Who wins? Could you imagine? It'd be like an octopus and a squid sort of entangling each other, wouldn't it?
I don't want to say I don't like watching Lawrence Okolie. He's got a style that is very effective, but is boring. I would side with Okolie. I think domestically he beats anybody. I just think they'd struggle to deal with him. I thought Dillian Smith beat Ray at Poirier last night, but it was close. I mean, there was one really odd card from Salvador Salva. Oh, O'Connor scored it to Dillian Smith, 96-93. Lezek Jankovic scored it to Rhea Poirier by a point. Mm-hmm. Then you've got this Salvador Salva scoring it 97-92 to Rhea Poirier, just a complete wild card. Really odd. Disappointing, really. It was a close fight. I don't really care about that fight. I'd go with Okolie. I thought Chisora just, again, an absolute brutal knockout. And I tell you, he's switched to haymaker, and where is this power coming from? Because Chisora's not showed this display of power before, and now he's knocking out people in brutal fashion, like Carlos Takam, who some people have struggled to make a dent in, and he basically made him on spaghetti legs. And Spilker as well last night. It was a brutal finish. Dan Aziz beat Charlie Duffield. Thought that had happened. Duffield's got beat before against a random journeyman. Aziz showed his quality, to be honest. I thought the card was okay. I thought it was reasonably well matched. My views, it probably wasn't a pay-per-view. I see things like Eddie saying that it's one of the best cards he's ever promoted. That's his opinion. He's more than welcome to it. But when Dave Allen, David Price is your chief support, I wouldn't say that's one of your better cards. But all in all, yeah, it was okay. I thought Chisora Spilker was a decent fight on paper. I thought Spilker potentially could have caused the upset. And yeah, it was okay. All in all, I was pleased with it. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see where Chisora goes next, because they're not going to chuck him in with Dillian White again. Eddie's got a hell of a lot of opponents. Did they use him for somebody like Martin Bakole, Flip Hrgovic, perhaps a possible Alexander Usyk opponent?
Yeah, I think so, Usyk.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Chisora's got that win, but then he's not in any line for a world title. He's not going to fight Caballel again. So where does he go next? Does he become an opponent and go out to America or something like that and get handsomely rewarded for it? We'll just have to wait and see.
Right, moving on. A couple of Dave Allen points that I'll clear up. Don't really go on any discussion. He's maybe disputing the in the bar at 2 a.m. thing somebody was saying, and I've also had a DM. He's done a video saying that he was suffering from headaches in the lead up to the fight and didn't say anything. So I think those are those pre-assigned medical conditions that Max Stoke was maybe talking about. And Michel Soro over in France was supposed to fight Kabanov. Kabanov pulled out for whatever reason. I just saw Graham Houston tweeting it. I don't know what the issues were with him. It was a shame, because I thought that was a... What was it, Andy? Sorry?
Visa problem.
Oh, right, okay. That was a shame, because that was a decent fight. He ended up with this 23-1 Anderson Prescott. He was no Brady's Prescott, because he got knocked out in 5 rounds. Did you manage to see any of this card?
I seen... Lewis Tutin actually fighting against Dmitry Chudinov, iced him in 2 rounds. I think when that happens, when Lewis Tutin knocks you in 2 rounds, I think it's time to retire and stuff. Tutin's he's a decent fighter at a certain level, but he's going to come up short actually. Soro, I've seen some of the fight, but not a great deal of it, to be honest with you. I think I ended up kind of getting sidetracked or sidesway actually, because ended up reading about the cancellation of the Castano rematch and stuff like that. It became a bit of a kind of legal mess and financial mess and stuff like that. That's, to be honest, mate, I didn't see the fight, but Soro must be up in age now as well, and I don't know what the kind of plan is with him at all. I mean, the Castellano rematch was like a kind of logical fight to make, and I think he's now been kind of getting put into fights against fighters at maybe kind of European level and stuff. So I don't know if it's going to kind of go back that way and stuff, but who knows?
Gabe, moving on to the card on Friday night, we did discuss it on last night's pod, if anybody wants to go back, only for a couple of minutes or so. Teofimo Lopez, I thought he got a good learning fight, good experience, and a good win against Masayoshi Nakatani. A few people aren't too happy, said they actually thought Lopez looked shit, and he didn't even deserve to win. I thought he looked okay, and as I say, it was a good experience, good learning fight for him. Maxim Dadashev, we know all about that, 13-0, went in against the fellow 13-0 Puerto Rican puncher, Subriel Matias. He looked tiny compared to Matias, and he's come out in a real bad way. We were talking about Magomed Abdusalamov last night. I didn't think it was as bad as that. Looked like it actually could be worse than that terrible situation. So hopefully everything's okay for Dadashev as far as it can be. I mean, it's a really terrible situation. Esquiva Falcao, 23-0, got a good 8th round win over Jesus Gutierrez. And Gabe, on the undercard, I thought this was quite an interesting moment between heavyweight prospect Cassius Chaney and big Joel Cordell. The big fat lad Cordell, he went face first through the ropes, and he literally went flying onto his head, this guy, like a dive bomber through the ropes. And I thought, he's hurt, but he didn't. He got up, shuffled his way back into the ring for more punishment, Gabe. No fooling, no playing, no Bernard Hopkins against Joe Smith Jr. This big guy got straight back in, and then he got knocked out about 10 seconds later. But that was a fun bit of interest on that card. But tell me about what you're interested in, maybe starting with Teofimo Lopez, Gabe.
Well, I thought Lopez maybe got put in a position where he'll go back to the gym and start looking at some things that weren't going well for him, like the right hand from Nakatani. I mean, I think what whenever I'm looking at it, what I saw ended up happening was that he didn't look all that great to me, but it was more of a relative scenario to what we've seen before because he's been so flashy and he's looked really outstanding for how many knockouts has he had recently? I mean, just about every fight he's won by knockout in the last several, and they've been pretty spectacular as well. But I didn't think he looked so hot. I thought he looked just off. But I think it was learning things. I think it was things that he will go back and hopefully, like I said, go to the gym and take some time to work on. The whole shoulder roll defense thing is I don't like it from very many people. I don't think very many people pull it off. It looks good and it's sharp, but you're talking about really name 5 guys that have been really effective using it in the last 15 years outside of Floyd Mayweather and James Toney. And I think it's a difficult thing to master. That's like a master class type of skill and way to fight. And I just think that he could be much more of a responsible defender if he were to utilize a different type of defense. I just don't like the way that he does it. But I think there were some flaws that we saw. And really what it was he's still a young guy. I mean, he's had some really great knockouts and some really good wins, but he's a young fighter, and there's still plenty of things for him to learn. And, going into the Richard Comey fight, I don't know if that one's kind of already prepared to happen or if that's kind of the main way that they're leaning right now. But whatever the case is, he's going to have some things to work on going into that fight. And he's going to be one of those guys that if he can pull off a title win relatively soon, he's going to be learning on the job because I think that there's just a lot of areas for him to work on still. I'd really like to see him get with a top-notch trainer as well. I just feel like the training with your dad thing doesn't work out well for a lot of those guys in the long term. I mean, I think it helps them get started, but I think that there are other people that could maybe teach him some things and show him some different ways to do better than what he did the other night, which is, again, not to say that he looked awful, but you just saw some of the flaws, some of the natural holes in his style. I won't carry on too much about about anything else on the card. I did enjoy the guy getting knocked out of the ring and then climbing back in. That was
he went down heavy, didn't he?
Yes, he did. You know, Bernard Hopkins could learn a few things from that young man.
His little fat legs bobbing up and down, man.
Bernard said that he got thrown out of the ring. He didn't mention that he got thrown out of the ring by a right hook.
Yeah. I think about that one, and then the time whenever he was fighting Chad Dawson in their first fight. And if I remember right,
there was one fight though where he did tough it out. Where was it Segundo Mercado or someone picked him up and fucking pile drived him like Dawson and dislocated his shoulder or something, and he got up and got a draw or something. I think it was Mercado. I could be wrong.
Wasn't that their first fight?
Yeah, I think it was the first one was a draw, wasn't it? He stopped him in the second one or something.
I believe so. Yeah, because I think that was one of his first big title opportunities, I think, if I remember correctly. Anyway.
That's right. Yeah, then on.
But it reminded me of Bernard getting knocked out by Joe Smith. And then, you know, I subsequently started thinking of some funny moments where Bernard had maybe found a way out of the fight, so to speak, I guess, if you want to call it that. Anyway, neither here nor there. But that was a really entertaining part of that card. For Dadashev, I just, I really hope that things work out for his sake and the sake of his family. I wasn't really paying attention whenever all the things started going on. It from an untrained eye of a medical doctor, you could tell he was hurt. You could tell he was in a bad way. But I don't think, as is the case in a lot of times, whenever you have professional fighters, that you see them and you really don't know how long they are going to go before all those negative impacts start happening. You know, a typical thing from the scenarios where I've read where people have been hurt is the vomiting. When they start vomiting, to me, that would be a terrible sign right off the bat, because that never leads to good things. But I just felt like it was, I don't really feel like anybody did a terrible disservice in that event. But I think it's going to be a scenario where, again, the commissions need to take a closer look at what their protocols are and what happens right after a fight. I think there needs to be some kind of systematic approach to making sure that whenever a gentleman has just stepped out of the ring, he has urgent care right away. And, I don't know, with what we're talking about, the severity of the situation, whether 30 seconds makes a tremendous difference or not. But I would rather err and see the commissions and the people responsible for the health of the fighters err on the side of, let's find a way to make this quicker, and let's find a way to make this as safe as it can be, because we're talking about an inherently dangerous sport. Where
I think, Gabe, every second counts. And also, the last thing the guy needed was the ESPN cameras, literally ambulance chasing like Donnie Baseball down the road, trying to get every last little bit of story, every little bit of narrative. We got to get here. You know what I mean? Fuck them cameras, man. They shouldn't have been following into that ambulance, because everyone at that point knew there was some serious shit going down.
That was going to be my next point, Steve. I'm glad you brought that up. I really, I've made my displeasure at the production values and the announce crew and the general presentation that ESPN has had since they took over the broadcast rights of Top Rank. I mean, it goes, to me, down into the smallest of details, the lighting, all these other issues. It just is overproduced. It's too slick. It in no way, to me, serves what we see in the ring. And that kind of behavior from ESPN was, I thought, disgusting. You can say what you want to say about them maybe having a responsibility to cover the stories as they break, but I don't feel like in a scenario where that there is a problem, that you train those cameras on those people that are in a bad spot. I just feel like that was very bad taste, poor form from ESPN. And whomever made the call to follow all of that, should really be, in my opinion, reprimanded, because we have all the privilege of watching these guys fight in the ring. And sometimes it's a good fight. Sometimes it's not a good fight. Sometimes guys get hurt. A lot of times they walk out just fine in terms of relative health. But to focus on a scenario where that this man just was hurt in the ring and then came out of the ring, to follow him like that, to me was just like I said, I thought it was poor form. I don't appreciate it. I don't think that that's any of the business of us. I don't think that general viewers have any right, as some might say, to be in on that scenario. Of course, as fans of the sport and things of that nature, we always are trying to keep up to date on things and want to know the outcomes of things. And God bless Dadashev and his family. Hopefully he can have some good things. I recently, I think I saw a tweet just a bit ago that didn't sound very promising, but we shall see.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on him. Hopefully everything's okay for him. Episode 332 of the Boxing Asylum podcast. Rob Kelly's still with us, Ozzy Smith, Gabe, Andy, and Hated Dave. We'll be getting on to Bayou of the Week shortly, previewing the sparse action for next week as well. Just before I go to Andy on Teofimo Lopez, James O'Shea threw in a bit of a request, bit of a question. I want to throw this out there just before I forget. So if you're listening during the week and you have any ideas on Twitter or YouTube, let us know about this, because James is doing some kind of a master's or something on combat sports. Anyway, he said, I'm in the middle of doing some research regarding the prevalence on injuries in combat sports for my physio job. I'm trying to go down the route of how a bad camp is more likely to cause injuries, along with the mental issues it may also cause afterwards. I've mentioned to you before, says James, about Ricky Hatton having a bad camp for the Pacquiao fight, but are there any other notable camps in history which were notoriously bad and ended up with some form of injury? So he wants to sort of link a bad camp with someone's getting physical or mental injuries afterwards, and the effect of one to the other. I think it is physio, as he said. So if anybody can think of anything, we mentioned a few in the chat before, throw them into us and we'll throw them onto James, and hopefully his physio work and his masters and everything's going on okay. Andy, Teofimo Lopez, I want to see him fight Richard Commey. I think it'll be a good fight. I think Nakatani's style is not dissimilar to Commey's. He'll come forward, he'll throw shots, winging, punches to the body. If you can back Commey up, I think he's in trouble. Don't think he's as effective going back as he is coming forward. But this Nakatani fight, there's a method in Top Ranks madness why they got this guy in.
Yeah, it's probably the right opponent for him, actually. Couple of questions kind of sprung to mind for me, at least. To be honest, I think that probably confirmed his class there at the weekend and stuff. Now, Lopez, obviously, I'm not going to kind of say that he's like a bum or he's a fraud or anything like that. And he's not, what was his 14th, 15th fight or something? He's only 21 years of age and stuff like that. He's still got a lot of learning to do. But I think off that performance there last night, Friday night, one, obviously, Nakatani's a massive dude. I mean, he's fucking huge for that weight. I don't know what he is. He must be like, he's pushing 6 feet. He must have been. Either that, he's got a lot of snot in his napper, man. That's how big he is. But he was having problems with the jab, and that's obviously he's going to have problems with guys who are long, rangy and stuff like that. But I thought it was quite telling after about 6th or 7th round. The gas tank started to kind of weather a little bit, and it wasn't so much how he was fighting. I think he was more pausing in his boxing, probably just trying to kind of catch a breath here and there and stuff. I mean, to be honest, I mean, to me, he won the fight, but I don't think he won it like 118, 110, I think it was in one of the scorecards. I think that was disrespectful. I think it was more like 116, 112 type thing for Lopez. Definitely won the fight for me. He landed quite some hard shots, especially on the inside and stuff. And when he exchanged and stuff, he was really good. Let him in the left hook and stuff. But I think the gas tank is pretty telling, especially at that weight. The rumour is that Nakatani was the one who had problems trying to make the weight rather than Lopez, who's apparently brought in a strength and conditioner, nutritionist, and all that sort of thing. But I'm watching that fight, and I'm watching Lopez pausing for moments and stuff like that, and all I can think of is Lomachenko stepping in closing distance, stepping to the side, spinning off or whatever, and that constantly making him work. And I could see Lomachenko basically pepper him with shots all night long to the point whereas he's a bloody mess. He quits, gets stopped on a mercy stoppage, or he gets roundly beaten on points. And that's just off that performance. Maybe Lomachenko fight will be totally different because he's a smaller guy compared to Nakatani, but I can see Lomachenko making him work for the full 12 rounds if it goes that far. If he does, I can see Lopez taking a bit of a trimming, actually, in all honesty, who probably, in my opinion, he's getting fast-tracked a title shot because he is probably too big, maybe on slightly borrowed time at the weight. This 21-year-old, remember, he is grown. He's going to continue growing for the next 3 or 4 years. He's not all saying the man strength hasn't come yet, so I think, as I say, he's borrowed time at the weight, and that's what maybe kind of affects his performance, especially against the bigger guys who are going to extend him, push him, give him problems, and he had problems to deal with. As I say, he didn't have it all his own way, but he definitely won the fight, but definitely question marks going forward and stuff like that. It's the old saying again, you're only good as your last fight, and your last fight basically broke question marks to me as that Lomachenko's going to outwork you potentially and give you all sorts of problems for all sorts of angles and stuff like that. I just didn't see how he can combat it unless he kind of lands lucky with a left hook and works the body. That's maybe Lomachenko's kind of weak point, maybe the body and stuff like that. But we'll wait and see if it comes off. But Commey's obviously the fight next, and it's another tough, tricky fight for him if he can get Commey's respect and get him backing up, as you say, mate.
Completely agree. Talking about landing lucky, we've landed lucky here to have the main man, Donnie Baseball, on the call. How are you, Donnie? Keeping well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just trying to stay cool. It's 101 degrees here in Connecticut. We got a heat wave. But anyways, yeah, the action last night was pretty good.
How do you stay cool over there, Donnie? Are you walking around with no clothes on? What's the verdict?
Oh, absolutely. That's why I was.
He has the shirt on. Don't you? Has the shirt on in the heat wave. It's fucking pissing rain over here, you bastard.
No, I got another Hawaiian shirt on today.
I reckon he's got the salmon shorts on as well. Definitely suitable for that.
I hope you get run over by the way, and your whole family decides to leave and ID your body because they're actually embarrassed with what you're wearing.
What he means, Donnie, is welcome back. Right, Pacquiao against Thurman or Dillian White. Donnie, what do you want to talk to us about?
I didn't see Dillian White actually. I was busy the other day, but anyways, in the evening time, I did go to the movie theater to go watch Pacquiao-Thurman. Reasonably well attended. I was disappointed that they didn't have my local theater. I actually had to drive a little bit to get to it, but it wasn't a problem for me. And I gotta say, maybe it's just watching the fight on the big screen and the the ability to see so much and in such great detail. But I have to say, even though like the fight wasn't particularly eventful and there wasn't a lot of like big moments or changes in momentum, like it held my interest for the entirety of the fight. And it always seemed like either guy was on the verge of making something big happen, even if nothing big ever actually did happen. I don't know if that makes sense, but it was good to watch Pacquiao just do his thing, and it's just amazing to think that like he takes these young guys that are essentially supposed to be the top of the division, and he just soundly beats them. And I was thoroughly impressed with Pacquiao last night and his movement. I mean, I don't know what's already been said already and how much credit he's getting, but I can't really credit him enough. I mean, the thing about Pacquiao is that the only fights that I really want to see are fights that I think he's not going to take because he loses, like the Spence fight or maybe the Crawford fight. Those are the only ones I really want to see. But I think that like with that basically like A- class of welterweights, like Thurman, Garcia, Porter, those type of guys. Like I think he beats all of them, and it's really the only person that could really question him. I think is Spence or Crawford, or both the top guys there and in the peak of their prime. And I think that really says a lot about how skilled Manny Pacquiao is that even at 40, it takes probably the most elite level fighter in the division to beat him. And even then, we can't even be sure that Spence would beat him. We can't be absolutely sure of that, but that's the caliber a fighter that it would take to take down Pacquiao right now, and he's 40 years old. I mean, I think it's just amazing, and you know, I think he showed last night by taking out these, you know, young guy like Thurman, like why he truly is like an all-time great, and it was a pleasure to watch. I just hope he doesn't go on too long though, because you know, I don't want to see him end up getting, you know, hurt. I mean, you know, he's been fighting since he was 16 years old. He's got a lot of miles on his, you know, on his odometer, if you will, and you know, it might be time for him to hang it up. And the only other thing that I would say about this fight is that my worry is that it's going to set up the stage for the most meaningless sequel of all time, which is Floyd Manny 2 next May, Cinco de Mayo 2020. Nobody in boxing, no serious boxing fan wants to fucking see that fight, in my opinion. But the casuals will demand it and will probably get it because there's probably too much money in making that fight happen for it not to happen. And that's unfortunate. But I guess that's all I got to say.
Donnie, are you trying to say that Pacquiao has a few too many miles on his pedometer? Eh?
What's that?
Yeah, he has a few too many miles on his pedometer.
Another Steve.
Yeah, PED, yeah. I got it, yeah. Sorry, it took me a second.
That was good, wasn't that, Don? That was a good one, that. Donnie liked it anyway. I liked it. It was a bit shit, but yeah.
Oh, Pierre Donnie.
My philosophy is if you're thinking something, you might as well say it.
Pierre Donnie, man, he's in a heat wave. Missy's probably fucking giving him a hard time. He's kind of get on the pod. He's chasing ambulances. He kind of pick up jokes and stuff like that. And guess what? Amir Khan got his cunt kicked in against Terence Crawford. The Manny Pacquiao's going to fucking give him instant rigor mortis. It's going to be elite times, man. Elite times.
But it's good to have you back, Donnie. You weren't interested in Dillian White at all, you said, no?
No, well, I was interested in it. I just didn't see it. I mean, obviously, I know the result, but
What are you talking for then? Shut up.
Pardon?
What are you talking for if you didn't see it? Shut up. Let somebody else speak.
Might have to ice you. Donnie, did you see? Let me. What am I saying? Did you see the big heavyweight?
I bet he didn't. I bet he didn't, Steve. I bet he didn't.
Did you see the big heavyweight, right?
No,
on the PBC? Because we've had a question in here saying, "Is Effie Ajagba a hype job?" Donnie, what do you think?
You never saw it.
Steve, the only thing I saw, I
Told
was
you.
at dinner. The only thing I saw was the Omar Figueroa versus your Dennis Ugas fight, and the two fights before that on the undercard. I missed them. I didn't get to the theater in time.
Tell me about Figueroa, because Declan Graffin said, "Is Omar Figueroa? Does he have one of the most pointless careers in boxing?"
Yeah, not only is it pointless, but I mean, it's like the guy actually.
Like Donnie's law career, man.
First of all, he's not hard. He's not hard to find. He gets hit very, very easily. And he also doesn't like to train that much, which is why he's up at 147 in the first place. Like, if I recall correctly, it was only
Jagba's a heavyweight.
Pardon?
Nothing.
It was Omar Figueroa a couple of years ago was down at, I think, lightweight. And I mean, he just like, you know, he should be down there, but I don't think I think he likes to, you know, eat a lot of food and like not really live life between camps. And so I think that's why he fights up at a division where he doesn't really have the power that he used to have, but he does have a friggin' rock solid chin because your Dennis Ugas hit him with some bombs, and he just like it just didn't even move him. I mean, he is just, you know, he's very, very durable, and so and he has a very offense first style, which will get him a lot of fights, and so you know he'll be in exciting fights and he'll give fans what they want, but I mean he's going to burn out quickly just taking the kind of punishment that he takes. Because he doesn't have any defense at all, really, in my opinion. And you know, but I mean, hey, if that's what you know cashes his checks, good for him. But I mean, he really should be at least down at 140, in my opinion. And his power would have more effect on people there because it certainly didn't have any effect on Ugas. He was able to walk right through all of his punches and just put it on him. And you know, you saw the scorecards. I think they accurately reflected what the story of the fight was, which was. You know, just total domination by Ugas, and Ugas looked great.
Right, we're moving towards the end. We're going to have to pick up the pace a little bit, Gabe. Jason Chukwu said he's riding the Ajagba train, but in response to Max Stokes' question, is Ajagba a hype job? Give me 60 seconds, explain whether he is or isn't a hype job, Gabe.
I don't think that he is a hype job yet because it hasn't reached a feverish pitch enough for him to be considered a hype job to me. He's not a name that you hear constantly thrown around, and he's not a name that you hear about in terms of potential future challengers to the throne of the heavyweight division. I will say that he is a solid fighter from what I've seen of him. He has some good skills, has some good fundamentals, but his biggest enemy from what I've seen so far, and this was visible in the last fight, in the fight last night, is that he just is
stiff as fuck.
He doesn't really have a sense of urgency about him, and he's not really mobile. So it's going to take somebody really interesting to come along and win in the top level of the division, because he doesn't have that sense of urgency about him. He doesn't appear to be a really mobile, tremendous athlete, which I think is going to cost him in the end. He's too stiff. He stands up too tall, and he just doesn't appear to me to have a big desire to really go for it.
Can I add? Sorry, can I add, Gabe, there? Just on that, I've just finished watching the fight there against Ramirez, and the other thing that kind of strikes me with him is he seems to kind of mentally rehearse what he's doing before he actually does it. So I don't know if he's actually a natural, or maybe just, he's got to think about what he's doing beforehand. But, by then, if you're fighting somebody elite, I've landed 3-4 punches on you, and you're like, what the fuck?
That's a great observation, that is. That's a great observation.
So I don't know. To me, he's stiff, he's upright. He could be taken out. I think there is a level here, and it's not very high. So the ceiling, is not very high. And Demirezin, as I did say it last week, and I said it last night as well. It was worth a watch this fight to see how it would go. Demirezin does lay some hands on him, but nothing too strenuous, stuff like that. And the Jaguar didn't seem to be too bothered as such. But as I says, at the same time, there's that element of amateur style about him still, and there's a bit of rehearsal about him as well. So I don't think the ceiling's too high, guys.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty accurate.
Okay, before we go to Aussie on Ultimate Boxer, Rob, we have one for you. We briefly touched again last night on Jason Quigley losing to Toriano Johnson. Bear with me, Rob. This goes on a little bit long between the 2 points of interest. But Jeremy Hitchcock sent in a question for you. Jeremy Hitchcock, by the way, who was the brains, excuse me, behind WBA champion or serial killer. It's not quite as fun as that this time. But he asks the question for you, Rob.
That was a great segment, that. We need to bring that
Brilliant.
back.
That was Jeremy Hitchcock. Congratulations, Jeremy.
Jeremy,
Yep.
Jeremy, do some more research, mate. Get some more, because that was actually tremendous. I loved that segment.
Yep, was very good. Anyway, he's throwing this in for you, Rob. He said, does the Irish amateur boxing style produce good pros? It seems the recent Irish stars to turn pro have struggled, especially defensively, with Quigley and Barnes being stopped, Taylor struggling with Pursoon, and Conlon lagging behind his 2016 Olympic counterparts like Lopez, Cordina, Stevenson, Shields, Yoka, Joyce and Kelly, despite being more experienced. Does the high-paced, point-scoring Irish amateur diminish their fighters' chances of becoming top pros? I want your opinion, Rob, and then I'm going to let you know what Joe O'Neill from the esteemed irishboxing.com said about this.
Well, I think he's kind of answering his own question the way he set it up there. Like, I don't think he's on board. Out of the Irish amateur scene, Bernard Dunn was a world champion. Andy Lee was a world champion in recent years. So you got to say that there's something to be said for it. What I would say, Barnes and Taylor, I think, are bad examples. I always say Barnes should have turned pro if he was going. He should have done it after the first Olympics rather than go for another campaign. Like, I think that really hurt him when he went to the pros. It was too big of a learning curve. It just wasn't the time for him. He was past it. Like, Taylor's Irish man for soon. I mean, if that's, you know what I mean? Katie Taylor's kind of done everything in the amateur sport that then unified the titles, albeit controversially with the last one. But you can't ask for much more from Katie Taylor in terms of her performances. So I think they're kind of loose examples. But what I would say is I think it's hard for them to transition over into the pro because of how well they're looked after in the high performance. I know I was quite close to Darren Sutherland, and he mentioned that big adjustment that to having a nutritionist, having a dietitian, having your physical training laid out for you, your sparring laid out for you, to basically being on your own and having to find your own sparring partners and this kind of carry on. So I think it makes it more difficult for them to make the leap. I did admire Jason Quigley for his thoughts on it, because I think the best ones are the medalists we're getting around 50 grand or something like that to stay amateur at the time. That's about 6-7 years ago. So, I mean, it was a good incentive for them to live at home and earn 50 grand, kind of the same as a bank manager, like, you know what I mean, for just boxing. So, but Jason was like, I have a family to feed, I want to earn money, so I have to go to the States. And I always remember Manny Stewart saying to me that, well, he wasn't saying it in a disrespectful way, but he was talking about Bernard Dunn and Andy Lee fighting in Dublin. And he said, Andy is fighting here because he can, and Bernard is fighting here because he has to. You know, because he had been over in the States and it didn't work out for him.
That's right.
And I always question it when they go and they come back. Now, there might be, you know, I don't know what there is to that or whatever, but it just kind of speaks something to me when they go and then they come back again. So, I don't know. But to answer his question, I don't know. There's been world champions come out of the Irish amateur team, and the latest ones, Conlon, it remains to be seen whether Mick will do it. There's nothing to suggest so far in his pro career, even if he hasn't gone as far as Lopez and that he's not capable of doing that. So we'll have to see. Jory's out.
Yeah, Joe O'Neill, Rob says it's a completely valid point. Another quote-unquote issue is the current crop all having been high-level amateurs for a prolonged period, 2 or 3 Olympic cycles. I sense a change, though, says Joe. With amateur boxing becoming more pro-styled, you are getting guys that have come all the way up like that, rather than those who have been tippy-tappy and then had to switch when the scoring system changed and then moved into the pros. What I mean, he continues, a lot of those mentioned spent a large majority of their amateur careers with head guards on and an ear-muff defence, then had a bit of the no head guards when the rules changed. But now the guys coming through are a bit better at bobbing and weaving, although head movement will forever be a fatal flaw for most Irish boxers. So he's touching upon the same sort of things as you. Fair enough comments, Rob?
Yeah, I think Joe would be more tuned in even to the amateur scene than I would, but like he's right about Irish fighters and head movement as well. Like that's why, you know, every now and again when we get like a Deco Garrity or a Paul McCluskey, we're kind of hoping that they're going to go to the top level with that style. Not so many Irish fighters can move their head. Like I don't know what it is. Like to go to Dave Alaru and block punches with their face and cut badly as well. But I don't think the amateur program can help that.
No. Yeah, Rob hanging around in fields at 10 p.m. there, hiding out on the turf.
Don't knock it till you try it, Wellies.
He's looking for that couple again, aren't you?
Hiding out in the turf, he's fucking smoking it. The weed dragger.
Oh, dear. Okay, so Ultimate Boxer. Before we go to you, Dave, Ozzy, tell us about the Ultimate Boxer briefly on Friday night, which was on Box Nation.
Yeah, enjoyable. I quite like these, you know, like little shootout tournaments. They're quick, they're entertaining, and you've got reasonably level match lads going in and basically teeing off on each other. Winner on the night was a cruiserweight tournament, and it was Mikhail Lawal. He was the favourite going into it. He knocked out Damian Chambers in the final in emphatic fashion. And it's one of those similar. It's prize fighter with a different name, isn't it? But the good. You see people that probably are just basically small hole fighters, and they get their opportunity. Some better than others. A couple of ones to watch out for moving forward. There was a lad who was a late replacement from Stoke, Razian Erlington. He got beat in the semi-final against Damian Chambers, but I actually thought Erlington won that fight. If you can catch it, watch round 2 between Chambers and Erlington. It is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There was a central area middleweight title fight as essentially like the chief support to the final, which was a John Telford against Jack Kilgannon. Kilgannon is from the VIP stable, and he edged out a points win, which I thought was more than fair, to be honest. And then there was a couple of other prospects on there, Khalil Majid and a couple of others as well. Blast from the past who entered the cruiserweight tournament at short notice, Tony Conquest. Sure, we're all familiar with that name. He got stopped in the first round off that Erlington actually, and just looked completely shot to bits, to be honest. So, no, big fan of these Ultimate Boxer cards. It's padding out something that it's obviously on BT as well as Box Nation, and long may they continue, because it's a great opportunity for lads coming through, and they always entertain. You can't knock it for a Friday night's TV card.
Looking at next week, Dave, 2 cards of any note that I have interest in. Don't pretend you knew that Gervonta Davis was fighting next week, Dave. He's 21-0 defending his... Yeah, Gervonta Davis, WBA super featherweight title. Super performance coming up against Ricardo Nunez. Looking at his BoxRec photo. He's a mandatory contender. Doesn't look like he has the most durability. Surely Tank Davis is going to send this guy on his way. Similar
If you see his picture of this guy, this Nunez,
that's what I said. He doesn't look like Mr. Durability on his BoxRec photo.
It's just so much at me. His picture looks. His BoxRec tells us he's 25-year-old. His BoxRec tells us he's like fucking 45, man. Fuck me. Holy fuck.
Oh, Dave, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, he banged out Hugo Ruiz, didn't he, in a round? That was a late replacement for Abner Mares, Davis. Why doesn't he fight Gamboa? Isn't Gamboa's on the card as well? I'd rather see that.
You're going to say Gamboa Martinez, man. Talk about battle to the washed. Fuck's sake. And you got Giselle Corrales, who I was thinking about the other day there, actually, who kind of has got a kind of similar stance to Rigondo. Fucking hell, man. Von Alexander against Ronald Gavril. Remember him?
Is Juanma Lopez still fighting?
No,
Juanma Marquez. Aye, fuck.
No, Lopez.
Freddie Hernandez is on that card as well, man.
Brian Vera's on the card. Brian Vera's on the card, Andy.
Jason,
He is not.
He is. Jason Velez.
26 and 15.
Muhammad Ali's on that card.
But one.
Yeah, the same one. Alim, Gavril, Velez, Jezreel Corrales is on it as well. They should have put Gamboa in against Davis. Davis Lomachenko, Dave, maybe something like that in the future. Be a nice little warm-up.
Yeah, sure. That's what we've wanted and requested and demanded and trolled him with for, it's got to be like 2 years now. He's always talking shit every time Lomachenko fights. He's like, oh, I could beat that boy easy. Some dumb shit like that. And everyone always replies, well, then fight him. But, you know, he has nothing to say. So if for no other reason, this Twitter might be funny this week because, you know, people will be aware of his existence again for at least one weekend and probably remember that he's a little fat kid who deserves to be shat on for, not fighting anybody. What's he doing? Completely blew his momentum.
Yeah, blew his momentum indeed. Sorry, I'm just having a flick through the
Happens
chat
to the best
there.
of us.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I've blew it in 30 seconds the other week, though.
You know, we're going to the fucking. We're getting ragged. It's after 10 p.m. We apologise to the listeners.
the water, past the watershed now. Where do you even go after that, man? Oh dear. Right, anyway, forget about that, Andy. I'm not going to burden you with that card. A decent card next week. Jose Carlos Ramirez. Don't rate him. Never rated him. I think that hopefully Maurice Hooker will do the business and defeat him. This is one of Eddie's cards, isn't it? DAZN, Murat Gassiev against Joey DeVecco. Tevin Farmer defending against Guillaume Frenoir. Guillaume Frenoir is 46, 1-1. This is the guy who fought John O'Carroll.
That's the guy with the long neck, isn't he? He's got the long neck.
He's won 46 fights, man. What the hell are these people playing at? What? Anyway, sorry, yeah. Ramirez Hooker's the big one, Andy. Like I said, I don't really rate Ramirez. He sells a lot of tickets. He's high active. Hooker has proved to be a little bit better than we maybe thought he was. I want Maurice to win this one.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the undercard and that. It's fucking amazing actually that even coming off a draw and that. I know. I suppose in the day, it's Eddie. I suppose John O'Carroll drew with Frenoir, gets the Tevin Farmer shot, and then Frenoir's not fought anybody since Carroll, I think. So he then gets recycled and he gets the Tevin Farmer shot and that. But yeah, it's just typical Eddie in that. He's just recycling the fighters. Ramirez, remind me, I've not seen Ramirez fight now since that fight against Imam.
Was it Imam? Yeah.
Aye. So what's he been doing since then? He
was supposed to fight Danny O'Connor, wasn't he? And do you remember O'Connor failed at the weight and he looked like shit? And I don't think that fight went ahead, obviously. And he went in against somebody else. Let me see. Okay, so he's fought Antonio Orozco's 27-0. That's a good win. And then he beat Zepeda. Now, that was a majority decision. Zepeda, if I'm right in saying, wasn't he the guy who put his shoulder against Terry Flanagan?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
He's been active, but not against any great level of opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember that Imam fight being pretty pretty competitive of sorts and that. So I mean, I don't know how far back. That must be about 18 months ago, in all honesty. And I remember this guy, obviously Maurice Hooker and stuff like having that kind of close fight with Terry Flanagan, and then he come back off that and had a good knockout win against El Cholo himself, actually, Alex Salcedo, which I think was a pretty. Remember rightly, it was a pretty good fight, actually.
Oh, it's a great fight, yeah.
So, it might turn into a decent fight, to be honest with you, but I don't know. Hooker, to be honest, I've not really spent a lot of time in his career and stuff like that, so based off the Salcedo fight, I expect him to come and fight, and Ramirez probably having to stand in the pocket and stuff, having to kind of dig it out, so... I'm going to go for a close points win, and I'm going to say maybe Hooker's going to get a decision, actually, because I know for you, Steve, you've been moaning like fuck about Ramirez for a wee while now. As I say, a close competitive fight. As I said, the last time I saw him was against Imam. You've been laying into him for the last couple of performances and stuff like that, so I'm going to say Hooker's going to do the business. I'll go 150, 113 to Maurice Hooker.
Yeah, I just think that I've got nothing personal against Ramirez, obviously. I mean, we haven't got beef or anything with him, but I just think that he's one of these guys. How can I put this? It's the modern landscape of boxing. He's a champion. Like I said, he sells tickets. They seem to be pleased with him and everything, and that's why he's getting his opportunities. In any other era or anything, he would, he's not great. He's okay, but I don't really know why I have a lot of problems with him. But I fancy Maurice. I want Maurice to win this one, Rob. I mean, fair play to Maurice Hooker. He's 29 years of age and he's got 12 kids. I mean, he's got plenty of stamina in the bank.
He's doing well sexually.
Yeah.
So
maybe not financially.
Yeah, he's doing better financially. With
but the thing is, though, he's shagging a wizard's sleeve at the same time.
Well, obviously he's good at getting in and out. So I would fancy him. I'd fancy him next week. I like his style, actually, Hooker, from the sequin shorts to the kind of long.
So does his wife, apparently.
Yeah, no shit. No,
he has improved, though, hasn't he? He has improved.
Yeah, I liked him in the Flanagan fight. I thought they were going to hose him that night, and they didn't. And he's taken his shot since then. He's had two good wins since then. So I like him. I think he's not going to put asses in seats or anything with his style, but he's entertaining to watch, and he's been in a couple of good fights already. So he looks like a good TV fighter for a card like this for what it is. So yeah, I'm Team Hooker all the way.
Team Hooker, baby. Dave Smith in the chat says, did they say Gassiev is out injured? He thinks Gassiev might be out injured, not to my knowledge. But then again, is he?
Aye, hand injury, aye.
Oh dear, that's disappointing. I want to see Joey. Hopefully they'll get Joey DeVecco.
By the way, I forgot that Hooker fight's a unification as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. He's the
WBC. I thought that. Aye.
That's what I'm saying. Andy Ramirez is the WBC champion. Hooker's the WBO champion.
Aye. Because was there no talk about, before the WBSS tournament got started, that Taylor was potentially going to be fighting Ramirez?
That's what. Well, Ramirez was going to fight Prograis, wasn't he? Because Prograis was the WBC interim champion, and Ramirez was the WBC champion.
What belt was Taylor holding at the minute? Is it the IBF? Aye, it's the IBF belt.
He beat Baranchik for the IBF, yeah.
So it held a silver title at the same. I can't fucking mind.
Don't try and keep up, Andy. Don't do it.
Fuck.
Don't even try. Dave, anything from you on this card or Hooker, Ramirez?
Definitely Team Hooker. I'm thinking about getting one tonight.
Oh, good stuff, man. Why not? Donnie, I forgot you were here. Apologies, brother. Anything from you?
So did his wife forget he was here?
No,
he's not married yet.
I'll let Dave go ahead.
Donnie, do you think you could go past Maurice Hooker's 12 kids? Is that a target for you?
Oh, 12 kids. Well, I mean...
Donnie's a good Irish Catholic boy. Of course he's going to have at least 12 kids.
Yeah, first I'd have to get to Adrian Broner levels before I get to...
The only form of contraception in Donald's family is to put his arse in the opposite direction as he fires his loads,
Oh, I was going to say the only form of contraception is stick it in her arse, but... Yeah.
Yeah, but Yeah, but Donnie,
You're going to have to live
Donnie,
in 7 years stuff. Go.
Donnie, it can dribble it though. It can dribble it.
We're gonna get banned again. We're gonna get banned again. Mayday, mayday.
Stop it,
Mayday.
Wellings.
Mayday,
Albert,
Gabe. Right, quick. What can I do? What can I do here? Right, Gabe.
Albertstein just clicked subscribe.
Gabe, save me. Tell me about Jose Ramirez's keys to victory. Something, anything, quick.
I'm trying to recover here.
Well, hang on, it's going away anyway, so we can't.
Might as well go out in a blaze of glory.
Well, Hangout's just closing anyway, so we may as well just fucking blaze the place to the ground. You know?
I do believe they are replacing it with something else, though. I believe we're still going to be able to live stream on YouTube. If not, we will have to move. But yeah.
Right, quick word, Hooker Ramirez from you, Gabe, before we go on to Value of the Weeks.
I like Hooker on this one. I don't really know what I don't know what Ramirez is going to bring to the table to kind of counteract what I think is going to be a quickness advantage for Hooker, and I think the range is going to be problematic for him too. I'm not sure exactly the reach and height differential between the two. But if I was just going off, what I remember in previous fights, again, comparative to recent opponents that they've each faced, I think the advantage lies for Hooker in that fight.
Ozzy, I don't know if this is up your street before we go on to Value of the Weeks. Hugh Gallagher sent in a question last week before the Dillian White fight. He said, is there an argument that Tommy Fury, friend of the pod, now sells more pay-per-views than Dillian White because of his casual fan base from Love Island?
No. Judge it on. See what he does in his. For one, I don't think he'll fight again. I think he'll make more money from endorsements and things like that than actually will boxing. But nah, it's okay liking him on free-to-air ITV2, but then paying 20 quid to watch him fight some absolute bum in a pay-per-view fight, not going to happen.
Unless they put it on YouTube and he fights like KSI or one of them. That could happen.
Pink Tyson.
Let's get Mick back involved. The £2 YouTube pay-per-view, like some random sports hall in Stevenage or wherever it was. Let's do it. Mick YouTube pay-per-view. I want it back.
Friggin' love Mick, man. Mick's class. Like, he always puts on a good buffet.
Did you see him, by the way, out in Jeddah last week?
No.
He's absolutely massive. It's huge. It's like, a weeble. It'd be one of those things that, if you push him over, he'd bounce straight back up at you. Wouldn't he? Because it's like that. No. He's massive.
Are you talking about Kell Brook or Gervonta?
Mick Hennessy.
Mick Hennessy.
Oh.
In that bracket, though.
Right, let's get on to Value of the Week. There is actually a nomination, a Mick Hennessy-related nomination in Value of the Week, coming up shortly. Rob's on the panel still, Ozzy, Gabe, Andy, Donnie, and Dave. Hopefully they'll all stick around to go through the Value of the Week. It's a really strong panel tonight. We had Tommy the Guru Allen on last night. I was trying to get Kurt on, but no dice, unfortunately. No dice for Kurt. So let's get on to the Value of the Weeks. First nomination is from Danny Robson for the WBA, who gave a happy birthday to Jarrell Big Baby Miller. Doesn't matter what Jarrell's up to at the moment. Happy birthday, fella.
I bet you got paid for it as well, the cunt, eh?
Hope you have a good one, says the WBA. So
I bet that birthday cake glowed in the dark pretty well, eh? Took the candles. Motherfucker.
Oh, man.
Happy birthday to Jarrell. We'll all echo that sentiment for him, for the WBA. William Lee has nominated Carl Froch. Carl Froch liked a Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins video. Watch, copy and share, says Katie Hopkins, as Tommy Robinson go on his way to court into Belmarsh. Carl Froch MBE liked this. William Lee picked up on that one. 4 days to go, says Eddie Hearn, DAZN, Chisora, Billum Smith, blah, blah, blah. Harrison Ferris jumped in. Quite a few people nominated this. Anybody who doesn't think this is box office doesn't know boxing, says Harrison Ferris. So he was obviously happy to part with his money. D-Dog has nominated Baby Fat Mick for drawing against an Afghan debutant over in Saudi Arabia. Indeed, Michael Hennessy Jr., after making his debut on Channel 5, fought to a majority draw against Farhad Hazratzada. Hope I'm pronouncing that right, Farhad, if you're listening. So there you go, a nomination for Michael Hennessy Jr. Paul Ferguson has nominated Johnny Nelson. Dillian White reminds Johnny Nelson of a young Joe Frazier in that he'll fight everybody and anybody. So Johnny Nelson up to his old tricks again. Paul Ferguson nominated. There you go. Chad Hogan has nominated Patrick Bateman, talking about a Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao rematch. Floyd doesn't want it. He knows what would happen with 100% Pacquiao. Not to mention, I agree with others that I believe Pacquiao won the fight. The commentary was biased in every way, says Patrick Bateman. Zeconomics, I'm sure this will be a rich vein of Bellew of the Week worthy bollocks, he says, from Alabi Omo Barden. He says to Anthony Joshua underneath one of his visiting Nigeria videos, Mr. Celeb, please beat Ruiz for me. You are much taller and muscular. A fat peep is already daring me for fight just because he was inspired by Ruiz. Double jab. Double jab. We'll do it, says Alabi Omabaden. So there you are. You liking that one then, Dave? It's very much in Dr. Joseph Ajayo territory.
The Nigerians are still not over that loss. I don't think they ever will be over it.
No, they're really not over the loss of Isaac the Grenade Ekpo.
What a legendary mention, Donnie. I've forgotten all about him.
Good beat up Abraham, I remember back in the day. The middleweight.
The Grenade, exactly.
When he beat Abraham.
One of the best nicknames.
He lost to Abraham, right?
Yeah, he lost to Abraham. He fought in the prison canteen, though, Donnie, so he can always have that on his record.
He was robbed.
They would have slaughtered so many animals. It would have been ridiculous.
Brian King. Thanks, Donnie. You've said enough tonight. Brian King has nominated Billy Nelson. Eddie Hearn blew them out of the water, says Billy, when talking about Martin Bacoli signing with Matchroom. Derek has nominated Johnny Nelson again. I've been watching some footage of Joe Frazier. He was crude, rugged. He wasn't a sweet boxer, but he was tough. He was determined. He was a lot like Dillian White. If you're looking at hunger, desire, natural instinct, then yes, in every way, says Johnny Nelson, trying his best to win Bellew of the Week. Samuel from Against the Ropes, good friend of the pod, has nominated Teofimo Lopez, who put up this little picture of him morphing into Floyd Mayweather. We're not here to take part, we're here to take over, says Teofimo Lopez. All respect to you, champ. Hashtag God bless at Floyd Mayweather.
That's got to be an outrunner so far.
Oh my God.
It's a solid one, isn't it?
God.
It's a solid one. Jamie Nutsack 007 has nominated Gary William. Loma and Usyk are best fighters in Ukraine, but if Gvozdyk beats Beterbiev, then that's a more impressive win than any of Loma and Usyk's
I
wins,
understand that nomination. Because who's Beterbiev beat? To say that, if Gvozdyk wins, that it's like a great win. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, I'm not saying Beterbiev is no a good fighter or stuff like that, but what is he now? 34, 35, and this is him just stepping up now to this point. I know he's had problems promotioning stuff like that, but I think we need to wait and see how this fight progresses before we can say that it's a top win or elite win. Beterbiev is a belt holder; he has been for a while, but he's also fought some trash in that time as well. So I can understand the comment.
Gary's basing it more, Donnie, off his potential, his punch power, his reputation, perhaps.
Wait, is this guy's Twitter handle Nutsack007?
It certainly is. He's the quality troll. I admire his work.
Usually people who put 007 in their handle, they think they're cool or whatever, but then you're preceding that by Nutsack. I don't know. It just doesn't really compute for me. But that's just me. I don't know.
Says the person who was just dropping in anal comments a minute ago.
Yeah,
Don't throw rocks in glass houses, Donald. Anyway, Marcus Bellinger has nominated Leonard Ellaby. Mr. Ellaby said, in the opening bout on PBC on Fox pay-per-view, with the exception of Nello, Luis Nery is arguably pound for pound the best Mexican in the sport. Kid can go. What about that then, Gabe? Leonard Ellaby says, apart from Canelo, Nery is the arguably pound for pound the best Mexican in the sport.
Go on, Gabe.
Leonard Ellaby is a fucking fat fucking cunt. He knows fuck all about boxing. He has a big fat mouth, wears stupid fat glasses, and I hope he fucks off and falls down the ring steps next time his large ass is walking up him and break.
I was waiting for the word homosexual to get put in there, by the way.
With his big smile on his face, Leonard Ellerby.
Fuck that guy.
Enough. Like,
Luis Nery.
didn't Luis Nery also get busted for like Mexican beef or whatever?
I don't know.
He's
I
innocent, Don. He's
that it was
innocent.
the beef that they claimed as the reason why he tested positive for drugs. But yeah, he pretty much went over to Japan after being stuck on.
Over to Japan and like beat the jabbers out of some guy and like knocked him cold, and then they popped him for some Mexican beef too.
And then the WBC put him right back in with the same guy again. It was Shinsuke Yamanaka, and Yamanaka had the balls to go back in with him again and lost to him a second time, which I still suspect that he's on some kind of drugs because he made the weight, and we see him constantly struggle with the weight. Even the fact last night that he was quite a bit larger than Payano. So if Ellerby loves him so much, maybe he can trip and fall on his dick. For all I give a shit. Bunch of assholes.
Thumbs up to Leonard Ellerby, says Gabe. Steve Bunce just noticed 3 of the shows in Britain tonight and tomorrow are officially topped by women. A fan can watch about 75 live fights on British TV this weekend. That is a revolution, my friend, says Buncey. Mr. Potato says, all thanks to Eddie Hearn, #legend. Matt Simpson has nominated Mr. Potatoes, who is his Twitter handle is a little picture of Mr. Potato Head from the Toy Story, so that seems like a genuine account as far as I'm concerned. Ultra Tech Sports Raw has nominated Gareth on the YouTube comments, who keeps on patting Mr. Tony Bellew on the back. Moz has nominated that one. Max has said, this man talks more sense than the rest of Twitter put together. Ozzy, if you had to guess who Max was talking about, Max 25143798, I'm assuming that's his real surname, says this man talks more sense than the rest of Twitter put together. Who is he actually talking about, Ozzy? Who do you think?
Talking about me, Stephen.
I'd say Spencer.
Possibly.
Spencer.
Oh, Spencer. Well done, boys. Ryan Younger 10 has nominated him. This man, Spencer Fearon, talks more sense than the rest of Twitter put together, says Max. So there you go. He has spoken. Harold Anand has nominated Tim Hopkins for tagging in so many people. Just a creamer retweet. Michelle Phelps, Eddie Hearn, Box Nation were just some of the recipients of his tagging. Chad has nominated RB. Are Sky the only pay-per-view platform? You actually get shitloads of boxing at no additional cost on Sky. This is their first UK pay-per-view event of the year in July, and for a top 5 heavyweight as well. I think RB's maybe a bit confused. Maybe had a bit of a knock on the head there. He's been nominated anyway. What have we got here? Joseph Ajayo. Always love hearing from him. Luke Cloherty has nominated the Doctor. It was the referee who said no more, not that AJ did quit. Listen, people, African adage said, a good general does not fight and die in the war front. To run and fight again, that is how we know a great generalissimo. Ruiz, back of the neck is a rough blow, not allowed in boxing. So the Doctor's not happy about Ruiz against AJ, Donnie. He thinks that AJ didn't quit and that Ruiz was dropping illegal blows.
Doctor, heal thyself.
Say that again, Donald.
Never mind. No, I said.
Yeah, shut the fuck up.
Sorry, Donnie, I talked over you. I do apologize.
No, I'm just saying it's really fucked up. Like AJ's biggest fans just like can't accept that he quit. They're just like they're in total denial. It's really pathetic. And they really need to seek professional help, in my opinion.
Maybe they could get some professional help from Dr. Joseph Ajayo.
He could cure himself. Chad Hogan has nominated David Hay. He's like Mike Tyson, says Mr. Hay. David Hay sees similarities between Dillian White's opponent, Oscar Rivas, and the heavyweight great Rob.
The fucking cheek of him saying that. With a straight face as well. Fucking hell.
He's class, isn't he, man? No fucks given. I'm actually starting to admire Hay a bit more, you know.
Yeah, I think I like him better out of the ring than I did towards the end of his career, like, definitely. I liked him early doors, but then all that shit in the middle, like.
Never know, he might come back again. Maybe Hay versus Bellew 3. This time it's personal. Chad Hogan has nominated Eddie. Talking.
If I was him, I'd be more inclined to try and get the rematch with Rita Ora.
Maybe getting him on the Love Island, perhaps with Tommy Fury and Pink Tyson.
Oh man, that'd be unbelievable. Definitely.
Eddie talking to Boxing Social. This is one of the best cards we've put on in a long time. Eddie Hearn discusses criticisms of this week's White versus Rivas card due to it being a pay-per-view show. By nominating for that coming towards the end now. Gavin Stevens has nominated Eddie again, talking to behind the gloves, behind the ropes, behind the ring, behind the something. I haven't quite screenshotted it. Good job. Frank Warren is not doing a good job on Daniel Dubois, says Eddie. Eddie Hearn on Warren, AJ Ruiz too, and a terrible Saudi card. He's obviously trolling Andy, isn't he? I think Frank's doing a fine job with a 21-year-old British champion.
He's done no bad. Pretty well, actually. Try to talk him out of that fight with Gorman. Gorman said no, he put his foot down. That's what you want. This is why we're talking about when fights don't happen and stuff, and a lot of shit goes on at the promoters and that, but at the same time, promoters obviously have got a lot to say on why fights don't happen. But it was a refreshing moment when Dubois and Gorman says, no, we want this fight to happen and stuff. So for Eddie to come out and say, his career's getting mismanaged or whatever and stuff like that, 21-year-old British champion already, right? And you can't even get Dave Allen a Southern Area fucking title fight or get him to win that belt, you know what I'm talking about? So, and for what I'm hearing as well, Eddie, for what there's some really problems with this Ruiz rematch. People advising them not to take the rematch right, straight away. Heyman might have you by the bollocks and stuff like that. Not a good time to be Eddie Hearn. Plus, last night didn't do too well as well. So, yeah, poor Eddie.
His haircut looks nice though.
Eh?
What
about his hair plugs, by the way?
That's what we said. His haircut looked amazing. He looked like a confused Lego man.
Oh man, he's got Botox, hair plugs. He's 40-year-old Eddie, man. Jesus Christ, just do it gracefully. Do it gracefully, mate. It's what you can do, but you can't do it.
There's a lot to be said for that, isn't it? Like, just take it. You know what I mean? We try to hang on.
The ego to say to yourself, I'm
you
more
want to see Frank Warren going out getting Botox, would you?
No, Frank just fucking says, take me as you are, but Eddie Hearn's like, I've got the chick, I've got the chicks and dicks to keep happy and that, so he's got to get the Botox, he's got to get the fucking hair transplants done, he's got to get the fucking Botox, he's got to get the fucking tan, get a wee bit of kind of middle-aged spread off. Yeah, it's no good for Eddie Hearn these days, like.
Donnie, if your hair started thinning, would you consider a transplant?
Probably.
There you go. Maybe the British Hair Clinic will get involved. We've mentioned them for Value of the Week in the past. I think James DeGale's affiliated.
Thankfully, we're not at that point yet. But no, what I was going to say was that I think Frank Warren brings along a young, promising fighter in the best possible fashion, and he usually does it the old-fashioned way by doing the area titles and then the British title and the Commonwealth title. I think he's doing a great job with Dubois, and I think that Eddie Hearn has a case of sour grapes because he probably wishes that he got on Dubois instead of some of the other fighters that he's picked up or whatever. But I think that Frank's doing a great job. I saw a tweet the other day with all of the numbers that he's doing on YouTube in terms of his some of his knockouts and everything. And then there was one video with 1.4 million views. I think Frank's doing a great job. It kind of reminds me of the way they did with Amir Khan. I mean, he built Amir up really, really well, and I think he's doing the same thing with Daniel Dubois. I mean, he's kind of like an Aram type. I mean, he knows how to like really nurture young stars and bring them along and give them exactly what they're ready for at the right time. I think he's doing great.
Yeah, well said. For all of his faults, Frank certainly knows how to bring a fighter along. Brian King absolutely on fire this week. He's nominated Alex Thomas. Alex has dropped a few L's here on this one. He tweeted to IFL Umar before the fight. He said, I'm spending £169.99, £150 on a ticket to go to the show, and $19.99 so I can relive Chris Billum-Smith winning in a spectacular fashion. You're welcome at Eddie Hearn. Starting to racket up the L's there, Mr. Alex Thomas. Hope you had a good night anyway. 13 Mike Boxing.
Ask him has he ever heard of the Asylum Patreon, this fella?
We need to get him on board, man.
Get on board, man. You get value for money here. You can relive what you want for $19.99. Dickhead.
$19.99. That gave him about 6 months. That gave him about 8 months worth. There you go. Well said, Rob. Patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. Friggin' right. You were
relax.
$9.99.
What's wrong with you tonight, Donald? For fuck's sake, relax, man. Will you? Come on. bringing the fucking tone down on a reputable, respectable podcast.
Donnie's bringing too much sexual energy to the pod tonight. You have to try and calm him down a bit, man.
Of course, this is what happens when you get loaded into the pussy. You get close to marriage and stuff like that. You don't get it as much. Donnie's past the honeymoon period at the minute. Whereas we're at it 10 times in the weekend and stuff like that. Now it's 10 times every fucking 10 years.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I bet you're meeting in the shower every morning. By the way,
when's the big wedding? That's
September the 7th.
Yeah, we're all meeting.
Andy knows. Yeah.
I knows because it's the day after my birthday, and I was actually going to go to it until my wife fell pregnant. So
Yep.
I would have been there, Donnie. Sorry, mate, but
I would have been there, only I wasn't invited.
There's still time. There's still time to come.
Well, we're going anyway, so.
Be funny if we gate crash, wouldn't it, Rob?
Oh, can you imagine me in Boston, by the way? Oh, amazing.
Bring it on the Celtic, man. Love it down there.
Oh, I love Boston, man. I've been to Boston before. It's fucking brilliant, man.
Boston is actually good, yeah.
Oh, Boston's amazing.
Going to have, like,
oh,
Boston, what? Definitely.
Oh, aye. It's a good night, like.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Emily X in the chat room. Can I get a shout out from the asylum? Sorry, Emily, not tonight. Back to Belly of the Week.
Brian, you're after giving us every Belly of the Week already. Relax.
How many more times do you want to get in, Rob? Well said.
Good hell.
At 13, Mike Boxing has nominated Spencer X. Oh, he's going on about Dean White. Dean White is a black traveller. He wins by early KO. Give it a rest, Spencer, for goodness sake. Well, yeah, I know he's on blocks.
A solid 30 minutes of Belly of the Week.
Great material this week, Dave. Another one from Brian King. You know what? I have had to cut about 9 or 10 of Brian's as well on top of all this. A few crackers from Gareth A. Davis, says Brian on Talk Sport, about David Price, Derek Chisora, etc., etc. Matt Skelton has nominated Danielle Shaw, talking about Manny Pacquiao in the Clean Boxing program. That's all the ones I've got. Any nominations from you, Dave?
Did you put in Lennox?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. You put in that one. I forgot.
Lennox Lewis called Mike Lee Andy Lee when he was getting battered around the ring.
Donnie, any nominations from you?
Negative.
Yes, I've got one.
Go on,
I got a belter as well.
I've got a belt as well. PBC, just at the top of the broadcast there last night before the Pacquiao-Thurman fight and stuff like that, they put a wee picture up of the welterweight champions and put up Errol Spence, IBF champ, Sean Porter, WBC champ, Manny Pacquiao, WBA regular champ, and Keith Thurman, WBA super champ. But there was no reference to the WBO champ, the one and only Terence Crawford there. So a bit kind of petty from the PBC.
They're shameless, Andy. They've done it on the light heavyweights as well. They had every light heavyweight except for, I think it was Bivol, and they mentioned them all except for Bivol. They went through them one by one. He was at the end, and they just didn't mention him at all. Definitely
for the PBA Bill of the Week for me for the PBC.
Sad bastards. I think it was ESPN who done that, but anyway, they're all at it. Gabe, any from you? Gabriel.
Sorry about that.
No need to be sorry, Gabe. No need to be sorry at all. Ozzy, any from you?
No, none from me.
Rob, you said you had a belter. No pressure.
Oh yeah, Chris Eubank Senior. He was giving an interview. I think it was Umar this week, and they said, "What have you been up to, Chris?" And he went, "Police work," right, with his badge. And I went, "Oh yeah, police work." And he went, "Yes, in New Orleans and the Sudan." The Sudan, right? I was like, "What? What's going on here?"
Sudan's fucking lawless, man. ISIS fucking run that place, man.
Well, no, Eubank's gone to Sudan. It's almost like they got a fucking convention together. They're like, "Okay, we need to deploy some of our greatest men on this project. Who's going to fight crime in New Orleans and the Sudan? Can we get Tony Bellew? No, he get Tony Bellew to deal with ISIS. Let's get this Eubank in." So he goes on then in the interview to say that there must be something to the vegan diet when you see how sleek the coats on giraffes are. So what the fuck is going on with Chris Eubank? He had the police badge on him as well. I was like, hold on, that's not police. That's Paw Patrol, asshole. That's not what the police So I don't know. Yeah, Eubank for that one.
Giraffes featuring heavily because Caleb Plant had a giraffe's print on his shorts in honour of his mother, whose favourite animal was the giraffe. So who would have thought there were so many giraffe-based references this week?
Year of the giraffe. Could Caleb Plant possibly fight Eubank Jr. and in the Sudan? I don't know. It could be. There's all kinds of possibilities there.
With giraffes at ringside.
Sudan. They're sleek and their eyes are so clear and their skin is so sleek. So there's something to the vegetation. Oh, fucking hell. I was like, what the fuck am I watching here? Like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, I have to vote for him just because of Rob laying it out so perfectly.
Fair play, Rob. That did deliver on every level, so that was indeed a belter. Okay, so yeah, I'm definitely going for Chris Eubank. That's an absolute cracker. Dave, what do you think? Spencer Fearon had a solid week. Teofimo Lopez was in there as well. Who are you going for?
No, screw Spencer. I'm going to vote for Rob's pick there because he really nailed the delivery. Although I did want to say I don't even know if this was nominated because I've been drinking, but Thurman's a worthy shout for all the shit he talked. But I'm going to go for Eubank Sr.
Eubank Sr. as well. Donnie, Joseph Ajayo had a good week, but who are you going for?
Yeah, actually, sorry, Rob's nomination really takes the cake. The thought of Chris Eubank going down there and just taming the Janjaweed rebels in the Sudan with his slick boxing skills against their Kalishnikovs, handling law enforcement responsibilities. That really has to do it for me. So.
There you go, Chris Eubank Sr. sweeping across the board. Andy, Johnny Nelson was comparing Dillian White to Joe Frazier, but what about Chris and the Giraffes?
Yeah, but Chris is obviously just that naturally weird, rear echelon motherfucker, just eccentric, he comes out with that shit, and I'm not surprised with it anymore and stuff like that. I mean, this is a guy, as I say, walked down from the top staircase of the Brighton fucking hotel in his underpants, stopped in the middle of the restaurant and says, when thousands of people are sitting there looking at him and says, look, people still remember me. Well, of course they fucking remember you, dickhead. You're a black man walking down the stairs with your fucking underpants on. Jesus fuck. Of course they remember you. So it's too easy to hate on Eubank, so I'm going to go for Joey Nelson. The plumber shagged my dog.
I had to mute
Shagging
that man. The dog could hear it.
It's all about the giraffes now, Rob.
They're getting on a vegan diet. Fuck that.
Wind your neck in.
Right,
like Frenois, the giraffe team continues.
That's a good one, actually. Frenois, the fucking giraffe. That's what we're going to call him, the giraffe. Frenois, man, that neck, man, his neck looks like fucking Josh. Klitschko's after fucking Joshua landed that uppercut on him.
Yeah, I thought of that when you mentioned that. Gabe, nomination for me. I haven't done a very good job of reeling it in tonight, have I? I just realised it's 20-11. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm going to fucking die here. Sorry, Gabe. Any no, not nominations. Who are you going for?
Gabe's still dying, man.
He's raging Gabe.
Gabe's high right now, bro. Like he's like...
Go on, Gabe.
Compose yourself, Gabe. Come on.
Eubank.
Ozzy, who are you going for?
Sheriff Eubank.
Sheriff Eubank. Looks like it's going to be a clean sweep apart from Johnny Nelson. Little nomination for him, throwing him from Andy. I'm losing my voice here, Rob. Who are you going for? I suppose Eubank.
Yeah, it has to be Chris for that one. Like, there's a new sheriff in town, and his name ain't Reggie Hammond.
There's a new sheriff in town, indeed. Congratulations to you, Chris Eubank Senior. Even you have been nominated for the Value of the Week for this weekend of episode 332 of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. Congratulations. Right, from the absolutely bizarre to the more serious, we're going to close out on a more somber note, everybody, obviously boxing was saddened and rocked by the death of Pernell Whitaker, one of the greats. If anybody wants to jump in right now and say anything about Pernell, Mr. Sweet Pea himself, who was tragically hit by a car, as Andy was reminding us, there's a few boxers gone that way lately, unfortunately. But anybody want to jump in and say anything about Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker very briefly? Then go ahead, guys.
No, I think you'd be remiss not to mention Whitaker on this pod. I mean, one of the greatest fighters of all time in any divisions. Proved it in his career, fought everybody for a long stage of his career. You could say he only had one legitimate loss. A lot of people thought he ran Oscar close, late on, and just, robbed against Chavez, but just fantastic fighter defensively. A matrix. They talk about Lomachenko. He could have gave Floyd, Lomachenko, or any of them trouble at 135. Possibly beaten either of the two of them, and he's legitimately one of the greatest fighters ever, and a sad loss.
Yeah, definitely. I'll echo those sentiments by Rob there. Just to let the listeners know, especially part of the Patreon, me and Steve's going to be, when the news broke actually, we just recorded the latest episode, the Punches for the Past, the same day that the Whitaker news broke. So we've honour him. We're going to be discussing in the episode after the next one, Whitaker against Chavez. One of the greatest defensive fighters of all times, especially of his era at least. We can't, no mention his name without the great USA Olympic team of that time. I think I forget how many divisions were competing for it. I think it was something like, say 10, but I think America won 7 golds. Holyfield won bronze. I think Paul Gonzalez won gold.
Tyrell Biggs,
Meldrick Taylor, great fighters, great fighters. As I say, he's got wins over like, say, Greg Haugen, Gary Jacobs, guy from Scotland. Hurtado, he's got wins over Rivera. Okay, the first fight is maybe kind of questionable. Roger Mayweather, Buddy McGirt, Azuma Nelson, multiple weight world champion and stuff. It's just it's sad, man. I mean, to have him and, as we say, Steve Graziano Roccagiani getting killed in road accidents, simply walk along the road and get hit by a car, to have their life ended like that, it's unbelievable. And they have this as well. His trainers at the time, Georgie Benton and Lou Duver. You talk about not having teachers anymore, by the way. Well, those were the two best teachers of all times. And they both trained Sweet Pea Whitaker, by the way. So, yeah, great fighter of his time and stuff, and sadly gone too soon.
One of my favorite memories from when I was a kid was watching that fight. It's not one of his signature fights against a great opponent, but was watching that one against I think it was Dillian Hurtado, when he was probably, according to all accounts, basically on drugs,
getting beat.
Yeah, I mean, he was not living the life at all, and he was getting beat. And then they came back and pulled that out of the fire and knocked him out, which was like...
That was a bad knockout, though. Look at the fucking referee, though. He's hanging through the ropes, Hurtado getting punched the fuck.
Yeah, well, I just Pernell Whitaker was known as a light hitter, but when he was, he didn't train right for the fight. He wasn't ready. He went in there, but then when push came to shove, he was like, "There's no way I'm gonna let this guy who's inferior beat me." And he just came back with and he just knocked the shit out of him. And I was I loved that fight. That was so thrilling, and it was so out of character for him. But that's how much to him winning meant that he just wasn't gonna lose, and he just went total offense first and just blasted him, which was totally out of character for what his fighting style was all about. But when his championship was on the line, I think that meant something to him, and he was a really proud champion, and he could have been so much greater if he wasn't, had all of his foibles for character, for doing drugs and everything like that. But I mean, even for what he was certainly one of the best of all time, and was just thrilling to watch. And I think in his prime, and I think he certainly could have taken Floyd to a 50-50 chance of beating him in a decision. I think that he would have posed a very serious problem to Floyd if they had fought.
I remember you need to go and watch that Jose Luis Ramirez fight, the first fight in France. That was the most blatant robbery, ever, that Lou Duva even called Suleiman a thief, that resulted in Suleiman then, basically suing him for like $1 million for slander and stuff like that. The suit was then dropped because Duva admitted there'd been no direct evidence that WBC had fixed the fight, but it was the most outrageous decision ever. As I say, we'll discuss it in detail, but the Chavez fight as well is another robbery on Whitaker's record, because he won that fight as well.
That first fight too, the one in France that you were just referencing, they used some kind of weird ass scoring system too. Like it was like a 20-point scoring system or a 5-point one. I don't remember what they used, but it was like really friggin' weird. If you look at the scorecards, they're not like regular scorecards. It's not like 117, 110, or you know what I mean? It's like it's really, they used some sort of fucked up scoring system. Everything about that fight was really strange. I always wondered how that, what was going on there really. But yeah, and then obviously the Chavez one was that was one of the most famous Sports Illustrated covers of all time, where they put Pernell Whitaker's face on the cover of it and it said robbed. That's like an iconic issue of magazine.
Sports Illustrated.
Everybody knew it though. I mean, it wasn't a secret. It was, it's right up there with the worst robberies of all time, in the opinion of most people.
Indeed, guys. Thanks for closing us out on that. Rest in peace, Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker, who passed away on July the 14th, 2019. We will play out with the 10 bells in respect for Pernell. Thank you to everybody who's listened in the chat, everybody who's come on the call. Dave the Hater Lowback was with us. Donnie Baseball, Andy Patterson, Gabe Lewis, Ozzie Smith, and Rapping Rob Kelly. I've been your host, Steve Wellings. We'll catch you all again, same time, same place next week. Bye.